An entitled Karen literally tried to return a birthday cake to us after the party, saying that she wanted a refund because the cake was stale. And despite the fact that the cake was literally half eaten, with only frosting smears and crumbs left over, she still was demanding that we give her a full refund or else she was going to ruin us on social media. Here's what happened. Working as a cozy little bakery, you see all kinds of interesting characters, but some just absolutely take the cake. Last month, a woman came in to order a massive birthday cake for her son, and she was all about the glitz and glamour, extra frosting, fancy toppers, the works. We poured our hearts into it and we sent her on her way with smiles all around. Not a single complaint when she picked it up. Well, fast forward to the next afternoon and the door slams open and there she is again, but now with a half-eaten cake. What's left is just crumbles and frosting smears, and it's right here that she shoves the box across the counter, all while scowling at us, and launches into a rant about how the cake ruined the mood for everyone because it tasted stale. And she then actually demanded a full refund. I tried to stay polite, explaining that our bakery does not refund mostly eaten cakes, which by the way, looked like they had been devoured pretty enthusiastically. I asked if anything seemed wrong when she picked it up, but she just rolled her eyes and insisted that we needed to take responsibility for it not being fresh enough. When I gently pointed out that her family must have enjoyed it, seeing as how half of it had already vanished, she doubled down and tried to be like, well, you should be grateful for my feedback. Now, luckily, my manager backed me up, and obviously she did not get a refund. As she stormed out, she said she was going to ruin us on social media. Well, it's been weeks and we are still here, still baking, and we haven't heard a single peep about it online. And sometimes, honestly, you really have to wonder how some people trick themselves into thinking that the rules just aren't for them. Dude, imagine going back to a bakery and being like, oh, my family not only ate all of this cake, but we're demanding a refund. We didn't like it. It was too stale. Give me my money back or I'll ruin you on social media. It's like, dude, what are you talking about, man? You ate the cake. You can't just walk in and be like, I want a refund. We didn't enjoy it. But it's like, if you really didn't enjoy it, then why is it like basically completely gone? Like if there was actually something wrong with it and it wasn't just like, oh, this is stale, I think, then sure, like I would expect like a refund of some kind, especially if it was damaged or sabotaged or something like that. But from the sounds of it, it seemed like a normal cake and this lady's just being incredibly entitled. So yeah, she had no right to do that, and that is honestly super obnoxious. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My boyfriend's mom invited herself along to our trip to France and basically hijacked our first international vacation. And now, at this point, I'm so upset because I seriously just want to set some boundaries that right now I just don't know what to do. Here's how it all went down. Okay, so my boyfriend of 3 years and I booked a trip to France back in January, and I've been looking forward to it ever since then. And for the sake of the story, I'll call my boyfriend Tom. Last month, Tom's mom asked me what hotel we were staying at. So I sent her a link saying that she needs to save it for any future trip. She then immediately replies by saying, oh, we booked for the same dates as you. And I thought to myself, excuse me, what did you just say? I then asked Tom what this was all about, and he tells me he did not invite them, and that after talking to his family, it seemed like they booked the trip a few days ago. So it's non-refundable for them at this point, and he doesn't want to argue with his family. Well, fast forward to the trip and his whole family is there. Like they're literally in the same hotel. Instead of enjoying the vacation I had planned, we spent it waiting around and eating at mid places because of their dietary restrictions. When Tom and I grabbed coffee alone one morning, his mom texted us and said, you went without us? I then asked Tom to set some boundaries, but he thought it would be better to talk to them after the trip. At the last dinner, his mom said to us, let's all go to Portugal next summer. We then exchanged a glance and changed the subject. This was supposed to be our European vacation together. Instead, it turned into a family vacation. I'm furious and honestly anxious about future vacations. So I'm honestly wondering what would be the best way for Tom to set any kind of boundaries. Should he be blunt and tell him that we just don't want anyone coming with us next year? Or should he take a softer stance? We rarely argue and I love him, but I cannot go through another trip like this ever again. What should I do? Holy crap, that is so uncalled for. Seriously, that is one thing that I absolutely would never allow in my opinion. And sure, you probably never expected this to happen in the first place, but seriously, let this be a hard lesson that no, these people should never know your business, because chances are they will try to ruin your experience. My scumbag landlord decides to make my life a living nightmare, as he literally starts rifling through my belongings while I'm not even there, as well as making my living environment completely unlivable. So I decided to get some revenge by taking him to small claims court, where I ended up winning in spectacular fashion, winning back my security deposit, my last month's rent, as well as getting to watch this guy get completely owned by my lawyer and by the judge. Here's how I did it. Okay, so I moved to a new state after college for a job, and I found a house to rent pretty quickly, landing on one where the landlord said he caters to young professionals moving to the area. And this is red flag number one. I mean, you would never know the state landlord-tenant laws, and he was absolutely banking on that. So I moved into a duplex, it was near downtown, and it seemed pretty cool. That is, until I met my upstairs neighbors. They were catty and super loud from day one, while I was quiet and I lived alone. Anyways, after a few months they moved out, and the landlord had a maintenance crew basically gutting and updating the place upstairs. And this crew was super scummy. In fact, I'd come home from work to find urine on my toilet seat, which was most definitely a frequent occurrence and not mine. One time when I came home, my underwear drawer was open and all my stuff was messed up and unfolded. Another time I came home and my mail was inside. Like there was absolutely no need to be touching my mailbox, which was separate from my neighbors. Like that's a felony. Anyways, this all was commonplace, and the crew would start working before 7 o'clock in the morning, which is also illegal in that state based on noise ordinances. The week before I started my new job, the boiler broke and it was like 90 degrees inside because it wouldn't turn off, and it was blasting heat in the middle of summer. When I told my scumbag of a landlord that I needed to shower, he told me to go next door and ask, because the neighbors were his tenants too, and I didn't need to rent a hotel. If I did, he would take me to court and refuse to deduct it from the rent while the house was completely inhospitable. And it's like, what are you talking about? Anyways, long story short, this all continued for months, and I felt unsafe at home. My personal items were violated, and there was always urine I had to clean up daily. I then looked for another place immediately after researching landlord-tenant laws and realizing that he broke the lease by not being able to provide functional utilities or a peaceful and habitable environment to live in. So I took this jerk to small claims court for my entire deposit back and last month's rent since I moved out. And the entire time, he was saying he was going to take me to court for breach of my lease if I left. And it's like, screw you, buddy. I hired a lawyer to make sure I understood my rights. And guess what? That lawyer was his childhood best friend's dad. I mean, honestly, I could not have picked it better. You don't need one to go to small claims, but he asked if he could go, and I was like, absolutely. We get to court, and between the judge and the lawyer, they wipe the floor with that scummy piece of garbage. And I was able to show a completely clean house with no damage through photos. And for reference, he was trying to keep my security deposit for cleaning the fridge and closets. So I showed the judge photos proving otherwise. In the end, I was released from the lease because of his breach of contract. I got my last month's rent, my full security deposit, plus the $500 pet deposit that was non-refundable. He refused to pay the settlement within the 30 days that he had, so I took the judgment to his bank and was able to threaten him with garnishment if he didn't pay up. And thankfully that worked out because I ended up getting paid and I was able to get out of there no problem. Oh my gosh, that is so unbelievably disgusting. Like, these guys were not only like destroying your toilet, but they were also going through your stuff. They were going through your mail. Like, that is so violating. The original poster, she basically said like this was really scary and they're really glad they got out. And honestly, I would feel the exact same way, dude. Like, if you're working upstairs, don't go into my room and start going through stuff, especially not my underwear drawer. Like, dude, you're a weirdo. So yeah, this was so well deserved and such a good way to get revenge. It's not even funny, because this landlord absolutely deserved to get shut down. An entitled thrift store shopper literally just takes advantage of my kindness, as I offered to fix her dress for free, only for her to never pick it up when it was ready. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, when I was a young mom of two, I worked as a waiter and was barely making it by. There were times that money was so tight, I'd feel panicky when my kids' friends would come over after school and would want an apple, because I'd bought just enough for my own kids' lunches that week. In fact, all of our clothing came from thrift stores and garage sales literally out of necessity. Well, fast forward to now when things are so much better, but old habits die hard, and I still love to thrift and garage sale, not out of necessity anymore, but because I know there are amazing treasures that lurk there and I love the thrill of the hunt. One day I was in line at our local thrift store, and the 30-something-year-old woman in front of me was holding a beautiful blue silk slip dress, pleading with the woman behind the counter, saying that she didn't realize when she bought it the previous week that the slip had a tear in it, and she simply wanted her money back. Now, there are no returns and no refund signs everywhere in the store, and the woman behind the the counter pointed to them and said no. This woman then said, please, I paid $15 for this dress that I need for a wedding this month. It's damaged and I can't wear it. Everyone in line was watching this and some people were getting impatient, but I was flooded with empathy. $15 doesn't sound like much money, just like an apple for an 8-year-old guest isn't much food, but it brought me back immediately to what it was like walking that tightrope. Now, I happen to be a pretty good and inventive seamstress, so I stepped up and I said, hey, could you show me the tear? And it was here the woman spun around and held it up for me, a small horizontal slit on the side just above the hip. I said, well, I can fix that for you for free. I'd love the challenge. It'll take me a few days. I mean, will that work? She kind of awkwardly gave me the dress, and then we exchanged information, with the woman behind the counter looking relieved. Well, I patched the tear with some blue silk velvet I'd cut into a small flower shape, and I sewed a tiny rhinestone vintage button in the center, meaning that it looked basically intentional, and in my humble opinion, even better than before. And I was really psyched to have done this good deed, and to have rescued a pretty dress, which is also a passion of mine. I texted the woman, who we will call Jane for the sake of the story, and I sent her pictures of the dress. She then wrote back and said that she loved it, and said that she would come and pick it up that afternoon. I then told her that I would be out, but I would put it on the porch in a bag. But when I came home that evening, the bag was still there. I texted Jane the next morning, and I asked her if she would like me to leave it out again. She said yes, and that she would be by that day. Well, this went on for another few days. I stopped texting, and the bag and the dress just kind of sat there. And after a week of this, I decided to bring it into the house and see what would happen next. Well, about 10 days later, Jane texted me and told me that she was sorry that she hadn't come by, but she said that she was really busy as a mother of younger kids and also taught yoga classes, and she just didn't have time to come and get it. She told me where she lived, which is about 10 minutes away from my house, which, by the way, is between her house and the center of town, where the only grocery store in the area is, and asked me if I would bring it to her instead. Now, there aren't that many great things about getting old, but one of them, for me at least, is knowing what to do and what not to do in most situations, especially based on collective life experience. Also, a better understanding of my own motives. I had seen a desperate young woman who was panicking about the $15 that she'd splurged on a dress that she couldn't wear. I saw myself in her shoes. I remembered my own desperation, and I thought to myself, okay, I can be a hero. With a little kindness, I can write a tiny piece of the universe for her with a small gesture, and she'll be so grateful. So maybe not entirely selfless. Maybe I wanted the endorphin rush of helping someone, or maybe I just wanted to be the kind of maternal figure who comes to the rescue that I hadn't had myself when I was her age. But when she asked me to drive the dress that I had spent an hour or so repairing for her for free to her house because she was too busy to come and get it, I had an immediate reset. I responded back by saying, no, rats, I won't be able to do that, but just text me the next time you know you'll be in my neighborhood and I will set it out for you. I'll also add that there was a notable lack of any kind of appreciation on her part through the whole process. I don't think she ever said thank you once. Another month goes by with nothing from Jane, so presumably the wedding she'd bought it for had come and gone. One day when one of my daughter-in-laws, who also loves to thrift, was visiting me, and I told her the story and I showed her the dress. She then said she loved it and asked to try it on. And you know what? It fit her perfectly. She then said to let her know if Jane never came for it because she would love to have it. And so with that, I just told her to take it with her because it was pretty clear that Jane was not coming for it. Now, I will say that I'd noticed during the repair that the dress had definitely been worn. There was even a small stain on the bodice. I had treated it and washed it, and it did come out, but I eventually figured out that Jane had bought the dress, worn the dress, and torn the dress herself, and was trying to scam the thrift store by saying it was torn when she bought it. Well, believe it or not, almost 3 months later, Jane actually called me one day and said to me, I'll be in your neighborhood this afternoon. Could you please put the dress out for me? And mind you, she had no apologies or any kind of explanations. Well, it gave me no small satisfaction to tell her that I was so sorry, but because I hadn't heard from her for so long, I had thought that she didn't want it after all, and I just gave it away. She then said, okay, and then she hung up the phone. Well, for what it's worth, I love weird stories, and the weirdness of this one made the experience well worth it. Also, this isn't a cautionary tale about reasons you shouldn't help people, because one entitled Jane won't stop me from offering to help people who need it whenever I can. Okay, I love this story so much, and I love how patient the original poster really was here. Honestly, I think I would have lost my mind after the first week, let alone the fact that they're like, oh, can you deliver it to me? I'm too busy to go over there, sorry. Like, dude, what are you talking about? It's a dress. Come and pick it up. I'm doing a good deed for you. And that's so unfortunate because literally, you were just trying to help this person out, and no one would have blamed you if you said, okay, I'm just not gonna do this. Like, I know if I was in your shoes, I probably would have stayed quiet and been like, okay, please get out of the line. But no, that's not what you did. You decided to be kind and charitable and step up, and that's like really honorable, especially since you saw yourself in this situation. Like, that's really sweet and very kind of you. But it's really a shame that people like Jane exist who just take advantage of other people and choose not to be responsible and at least like grateful for the good things people do for them. Because regardless of the way Jane acted, what you did was a very good thing. Today, I need to confess that I cheated to get into my PhD program, and even to this day, I've never told anyone about exactly how I did it. Here's what happened. About 4 years ago, back in 2021 during the pandemic, I had just finished my master's study and decided to enter a doctoral program. To do that, I needed to pass a very difficult exam that many people fail and end up only getting into the doctoral program on their second or third try, which is often more than a year later. It happened to coincide with the start of the pandemic, and this exam was held online. And since I had the chance to take it online, I decided to do so. Well, during this time, I was in need of money. And in my country, a doctoral program offers a stipend, like a kind of job. So with that in mind, I found a way to cheat online. Many of the exam answers I looked up were on the internet. Since we were monitored through cameras and had to record ourselves, I still found a way to search for the answers online. And even then, I had to be clever enough to understand, interpret, and write them down. So my entire exam was basically copied from things I found on the internet. And you know what? I passed on the first try, unlike many others who struggled to get in when it was in person. Now, I had taken a very similar exam for my master's degree, but I passed that on the second attempt. And I think I have the ability to have gotten into the doctoral program eventually, but probably not on my first try. Now I'm about to finish my doctorate, and I've never told absolutely anyone about this. Because yes, I cheated to get into my doctoral program. Okay, honestly, I want to say first and foremost that yeah, it was very wrong of you to cheat like this, but I think it will probably work out in the end. Like, it does look like you're going through the doctoral program and you're doing it honestly, at least I hope so, because getting in by cheating is never the answer. Like, don't cheat on your exams. There's such a high likelihood that you're going to get in trouble and that it could literally ruin your career. Because when you get to this level, this is not like, oh yeah, I cheated, I get detention like you're in high school. This is like massive career ramifications if you actually cheat on your stuff. So the risk you took was definitely not worth it, but I guess it worked out in the end. So hopefully you learned from this and you don't do this again, because this was a really stupid decision. My whole family is mad that we're charging my sister's family rent when they just found out we live in a millionaire's house rent-free, as they're demanding all of their money back for the rent money that they paid us. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my husband and I bought a beautiful farmhouse on 4 acres of land in the Pacific Northwest. During COVID, a rich couple moved a few blocks away, cleared a ton of land, and built a McMansion. Long story short, my husband did a lot of construction work on the house and really hit it off with the owners. Soon they were playing golf, we were hanging out, and they even took us to Paris. We became best friends, and through the years, they asked us to watch the house as they traveled, which we really enjoyed. They would usually be gone for weeks at a time, and they said enjoy the house and the cars, so that's exactly what we did. The house is on a private lake with a beach, as well as a pool, a hot tub, a sauna, a billiards room, a theater, etc. The couple informed us that they will be moving soon due to business and the heat of our summers. They had houses in other states, and they would like to keep this one, but they don't want it to just sit empty. They still want us to use it as a vacation home in the winter because they love the snowy mountains. So they asked us to move into it rent-free and just live in it, and they would continue to pay all the utilities and the upkeep. They would just keep the master bedroom, and we could live in the rest of it like it was our house. Now mind you, this is a $7 million house, and that money gets you a ton where we live. It sits on a private lake as well as 40 acres of land. Well, we discuss it and we decide to make the move. So now our house of 6 bedrooms is sitting empty, but we don't want to sell. We enjoy our new home and settle in for about 6 months and realize that it's stupid to be paying a mortgage for a house we don't use. Meanwhile, my family finds out about this house as we hosted Christmas in it, and we decide to tell people that we're renting it and that the owners gave us a great deal because my husband helped build it. We answer no questions about it, even though they kept drilling us. And of course, the question comes up with what we were going to do with our other house. Well, before I know it, my mom is strong-arming us into letting my sister's family, namely her husband and 4 kids, stay there. Now, we really don't like this because they're constantly making bad financial decisions and they simply don't care for stuff. After some guilt-tripping about blood being thicker than water, we finally decided to let them stay. We had to take less rent to make it happen and charge them with taking care of the lawn and the pool and upkeep. It's been about a year and a half now of them staying there, and basically they barely keep up with any of the chores. Our yard looks overgrown and terrible, the pool is constantly not filtered filtered or even balanced in the slightest. Fast forward to current day, and my sister's husband got laid off, and they can't afford to stay at the house anymore. My husband somehow let it slip that our friends let us stay rent-free at the current house. And as a result, she is pissed off and tells the whole family. And now, as a result of that, they think we should give them back all the rent money they paid and let them stay for free because we're not paying any rent. And sure, giving them back the money would help them out tremendously since they have less income, but we still have a mortgage to pay. We also could have gotten higher rent, as well as someone in there who would actually take care of our home. And here's the thing, I get people are family, and you know what? We tried to help and make our good fortune work for everyone. They also asked to move into the big house with us, and I said absolutely not. I would never trust them around our friend's house. So seriously, am I overreacting? I mean, what would you do in this circumstance? Because right now, I just don't know what to do. Okay, first of all, I cannot stand the saying, blood is thicker than water, because holy crap, no it isn't. I've had so many family members betray my trust, it's not even funny. All under this saying of like, oh yeah, we're family, we've got to help each other out. But it's like, dude, not if you're gonna take advantage of me. And in my opinion, that's exactly what your family's doing to you. Like, this is clearly them just being like, oh yeah, well we can live here, and since you're living there rent free, you should give us back all the money we paid you. But it's like, no, I don't think so. If I own a house and you're gonna be renting it, guess what? You're not gonna live there rent free. You're gonna pay for it by renting it, and that'll pay for my mortgage. That is simply the way it works, and no, I'm not made of money, so you have to pay or you've gotta go. So honestly, this whole situation is super messy, because in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, I think you absolutely need to protect yourself first and foremost before anyone else. Because from the sounds of it, it seems like your family would happily watch your entire life fall to the ground. And that simply is not fair for you or your husband in the slightest.
My wife turned out not to be my wife at all. Instead, I found out she's actually a professional scammer who finds guys like me, tries to marry them, and takes them for all they're worth. She's done this to multiple guys before me, gets pregnant, and then doesn't have the baby. When I found out from her family that she was doing this to me, I lost it and made my singular goal in life to destroy her. I made her get into crippling debt, lose her job, become a felon, and much, much more. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. I apologize up front for the rather lengthy post, but it's all true, and this was my greatest revenge. It all starts about 10 years ago. I was happily engaged to a girl who I knew for about 9 years, but had only been dating for about 1 year. Let's call her Nancy McSeabag. All was good. She had her dream engagement ring, we had a nice house together, both had steady jobs, and the wedding plans were coming along nicely. About 2 months prior to the wedding, we found out we were going to have a baby. Such happiness had never been felt before. Wedding plans continued and the big day was only 28 days away. I come home from work and find that Nancy isn't home. I call her to see if she got held up at work and to see what time she might be home, but Nancy wasn't at work. She was at her grandmother's house in another state. Nancy calmly told me that she no longer wanted to get married and that she was not coming home. Complete and utter shock. What in the F just happened? I try and call her back, but her phone is off. I call her grandmother, no answer. What about the wedding? What about our baby? What about everything? No answers. No contact for 3 days. 3 days of no breath in my body. No clues, nothing. On day 4, Nancy shows up and starts packing her stuff. She won't say a word to me. Nothing. She leaves and sends me an email saying that she can't be with me. Again, no reasons. I begin calling her sister and ask her what happened. Her sister tells me that she has no idea but gives me their mother's phone number. Strange. Nancy said her mom was out of the picture because she was an abusive alcoholic. Nevertheless, I call her mom. Her mother tells me that I am lucky number 3 who has fallen for this trap. Nancy cut her mom out of her life so her mom couldn't ruin Nancy's game of milking guys for money and resources. Nancy has been pregnant twice before and had, quote, miscarriages and milked guys for everything she could before running off to super Christian grandma's house and claiming abuse so grandma will take her in until the dust settles and she can do it again. What the F? Weeks go by and still no contact with Nancy. I've lost 20 pounds and have been counseled at my job for poor work performance. My family is still mad as heck. Family members lost money on travel plans to the wedding and I am mortified. I lost all the deposits on everything for the wedding since it was less than 30 days before it was canceled. I am piss broke. I check our joint bank account, negative $2,000. Well, I guess I won't be paying the mortgage. I start to pull myself together and my sadness turns into rage. I had so much anger inside of me, I actually had to scale it back a bit or I might have gone to prison. A month month and a half after the split, I get a text that says, I had a miscarriage. You stressed me out too much, and my daughter is dead now. Daughter? I was having a daughter? You're blaming me for this? That's it. I am going to end this bee. No, wait. Breathe. Get your act together. Take this bee apart at the seams. A few days of Z-bars and whiskey get me over the hump of sadness again. Back to the rage. Let's do this. Most of Nancy's stuff was still at my house, which I had to walk away from because I can't afford it anymore. I start to pack it all up in order to get rid of it somehow, but I stumble upon a few things. Her resume and her checkbook to her personal bank account. I read her resume, but it's all BS like everything else. I hop on the computer, create a new Yahoo email address, and send a long letter to her corporate office telling them line by line how it's all lies. Feels good. Operation Checkbook. I sign her name on every check and then rip all of them out of the book. I drive 30 minutes to the seediest part of town and leave them on a sidewalk in front of an AM/PM. Too much good stuff. I go back home and throw out all of her stuff. Why not? Sue me, B. Except her laptop. I keep that. 2 more weeks go by and letters from some district attorney's bad check restitution program begin to trickle in the mail. Oh yeah. And the registration renewal for her car? Shred all of that. While I'm at it, I might as well put a change of address in for her at the post office. Where to? The temporary shelter for the homeless sounds good. I hear through a mutual friend that since Nancy is out of work now, she is staying with friends and supported financially by super Christian grandma. F that. I hop on her laptop and make a new Yahoo email address that is only one number different from Nancy's real email. I email super Christian grandma an explicit video that Nancy had made of herself a while back, and I titled the email, "Hey grandma, check out this video I took of my job. I hope I uploaded it right." The reply to the email says,
"You are disgusting. I hope your new job pays well because I'm not supporting you if you act like that."
Oh dang, a 2-for-1 deal. Embarrassment and financial distress. Nice. Weeks go by and I get a call from Rent-A-Center. What the heck? Oh, they want all of Nancy's furniture back. I had no idea it was rent-to-own stuff. I tell them I don't have it. They argue and say she says I have it. I stick to my guns and tell them I do not have it and I don't know where it is. That night, I burn all the furniture in the yard. $4,200 owed. Zing. I find out that Nancy has a new job, and as I am planning my next move, I hear great news. Nancy has been arrested and is in jail for embezzlement. Apparently, she had some money problems and stole $5,000 out of petty cash and got busted. Oh man, this is great. She did this to herself. Months go by with no updates, and then I hear from a friend that she was bailed out of jail by grandma after only a few days and ended up taking a plea bargain for a felony conviction and 3 years of probation along with restitution. Wrecked. I hang my hat and call it a day. I have gotten my revenge. I'll leave it there. Time to move on. But a couple months later, the phone rings. It's a repossession company looking for information on where Nancy is because they are trying to repossess her car. Haha, okay. One last nail in the coffin. I make a few calls and find the address where she is staying. I call the repossession company back and give them the information. They thank me and say I am eligible for a $100 reward if they get the car back. I say, no thanks, this one's on me. Nancy is now a felon, jobless, and a single mom of a kid that she recently had from some random guy. She lives in an apartment with her brother and his girlfriend. I am happily married with a beautiful daughter and a great life. Yesterday, I get a Facebook message from Nancy saying, "Congrats on the marriage and daughter. I'm glad you're happy." I reply saying, "Go F yourself, smiley face." She blocked me. Life is good. Sometimes taking the low road heals the soul. So am I the jerk for my revenge? The very first question I had about this whole revenge story was the timeline. It wasn't the top response, but one of the responses actually questioned the same thing that I was wondering about. The question was, you say you knew her for 9 years and you didn't know about the other 2 fiancés her mother claimed she had. And if she was a con artist after money and resources, why did she not marry you? Why did she sacrifice a lifetime of resources for a couple $1,000s from your joint account? The original poster actually responded to this and said, the timeline of our relationship is a bit more convoluted, but I left out some details. Basically, we were friends and briefly dated in the late 90s. I joined the military, a few wars happened, we lost contact. This was when social media wasn't very prevalent, so I didn't know her every move. We reconnected after I got out of the military, and this is the rest. As for her motivation on the hit and run, I have no clue. The B is a straight straight up sociopath. If I had to take a guess as to why she did it this way, I'd probably assume that maybe it's because this is a lot more simple and clean rather than leaving the outcome of the decision to a judge who might flip things on her and reward the OP the lion's share of everything if the judge was thoroughly convinced that this woman was a con artist. Maybe that's happened to her in the past, maybe she's heard stories about that happening, but either way, just taking the thousands and thousands of dollars from the bank account is simple and she gets the money right away. The OP here basically took every shot he could possibly take at her. Not only did he try to sabotage her job, her relationship with her grandma, but he even burned the furniture so she would owe money on this furniture. There's actually a TV show called Imposters, and the premise of the show is almost exactly this situation, except instead of it just being one rogue con artist, it's a whole team, and the woman does actually go through the marriage every time, but her main objective is to find something to blackmail them so they don't try to retaliate and get their money back. So it's the exact same concept, it's just a lot more elaborate and prevents a situation where all this revenge takes place against them like the OP did in this story. So let me know what you guys make of this whole thing. Do you think this revenge was justified or was it going too far? Jerk or not a jerk, and why? Before we jump into the next one, if you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably gonna love Am I the Genius? Check it out, link down below in the description. My aunt was supposed to take care of my mom. Instead, she neglected her and stole her money. My mom had a degenerative neurological condition. My dad couldn't care for her and kept a roof over our heads. My aunt offered to care for my mom, and my dad built a large addition onto my aunt's house with the understanding that we would live there and that my aunt would care for my mom until my mom's death. My aunt soon stopped caring for my mom altogether, ran up huge bills on my mom's credit card. My dad confronted my aunt kicked us out, and a few years later, we got our revenge. It was brutal. Here's what happened. This is going to be a bit of a long one, but it's worth it. Back in the late 1980s, my mother Nancy was diagnosed with a degenerative neurological condition. My father was working long hours to put a roof over our heads and keep my mom seeing the best doctors, and eventually my parents realized that with two small kids and a body that was slowly but surely shutting down on her, she needed more help. We had an au pair for a while, but it wasn't a great fit. There was talk of hiring a nursing company to provide in-home care, but my mom's sister, Linda, very graciously offered to let us, my mom, my sister, and me, come live with their family, and that she would be happy to take care of her little sister. After a few months of working out the details, my parents and my aunt and uncle agreed to the following. Number one, my dad would pay for construction of a large addition onto my aunt and uncle's home. This would be a fully separate home with 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a living room, a kitchen, and an unfinished basement. Number two, my aunt, who was unemployed, would be the primary caretaker for my mom for the foreseeable future. My aunt claimed that she'd care for her until one of us dies, but I think we all expected it would be more like 10 or 15 years. Number three, my mom would have living rights to the addition until her death. And lastly, number four, upon my mother's death, our claim to the addition would be relinquished and my aunt and uncle would own it outright. In 1990, my mom, my sister, and I moved 3 hours away to live with my aunt and her family. My dad stayed behind to continue working, and this separation did eventually result in a mostly friendly divorce. Things went well enough at first, and within 6 or 8 months, the addition was built and we moved out of their spare room and into our new home. It would be a lie to say that it was massive, but it more than doubled the size of their house. We had our own exterior doors, our own heating and cooling, most every utility, electricity and plumbing were shared, but I think that was about it. For the first 18 months or so, my aunt mostly held up her end of the bargain, but soon after, the cracks started to form. My uncle left my aunt in early 1991. Linda started getting lazy with my mom, and consequently, her health was suffering, so my dad hired a home nursing outfit to come in every day and care for her. Linda took this as permission to stop helping with anything at all. My mom soon became bedridden. Not my aunt's fault, the disease is terrible, and couldn't leave the home, so Linda would do mom's shopping for her, but started buying more than just my Christmas presents or our groceries. A little at first, and then a lot. Eventually, my mom's credit card bills really caught my dad's notice. All told, we calculated that she had run up about $20,000 in purchases that were for either her or her kids. This was in the early 90s. According to the inflation calculator I just looked at, that's the equivalent of about $40,000 USD now. My dad was working 70-hour weeks for the overtime just so he could cover his own mortgage, repaying his 401k for the loan he took out to build the addition, and these massive credit card bills. By late 1993, there was a confrontation. My dad canceled the credit cards and said, "You are spending me dry. I can't have surprise bills like these anymore." And my aunt in turn said,
"Get the F out of my house!"
Since it was an addition and technically not a separate home, and since my dad didn't have the money for an expensive legal battle, there was little we could do. Living rights be damned. Right at that same time, the house went into foreclosure. Linda had stopped paying the mortgage 6 or so months before. I'm fuzzy on this number, but it's in that ballpark, and the bank foreclosed. Linda didn't have the money to get current on the mortgage. My dad began making plans to buy the mortgage from the bank and take ownership of the whole property. Things were looking good on this front, and he told us that we'd be able to stay in our home. By this point, I was 12 years old and I had a lot of friends, so I really did not want to move. His plan was that he would charge Linda a fair rent for her half of the house. We would continue to live in our half, and the door that connected the two halves would be forever locked, sort of like a duplex. It's at this point that I need to introduce the last character to this story, whom I will call Maria. Maria was the first wife of my mom's and Linda's older brother. They had been married for a short time in the 70s, and Maria became very close with her new sister-in-law. After the split from my uncle, she remained very friendly with both Linda's family and my family, and growing up, I called her Aunt Maria. Anyway, Linda now knows that my dad is planning on buying the house from the bank, and she panics. Makes sense, losing your home is scary. She calls anyone she can think of that will give her money to get current on the mortgage, and Maria finally comes through and says, "Yeah, of course I'll help you out." Linda calls my dad and gloats that she's no longer losing her house and reiterates that my mom, my sister, and I can move right the heck out. My dad calls Maria and tries to convince her not to swoop in and save Linda's bacon. He says, "A move is going to be hard for the kids and extremely hard for Nancy. Linda has neglected Nancy and not held up her end of the bargain," etc., etc. But Maria says that she's committed to her decision. My dad gives her one bit of advice that will wind up being very important. "Well then, don't just give her money to get current on her mortgage. She'll fall behind again soon enough. The house will still get foreclosed on and you'll be out of the money you gave her. Buy the mortgage from the bank instead and just charge Linda rent. That way, at least you've got something for your money." In early 1994, we move out of the addition. By early 1996, Maria rings my dad up. She did indeed buy the mortgage from the bank and now owns the property outright. Linda swore up and down that she would pay rent, but lo and behold, she hadn't paid any rent over the last 2 years. Maria asked if my dad would be interested in buying the property from her. It was a bit of a stretch since he was paying for 2 homes, his and the one I lived in with my mom and my sister, but he put the money together and soon enough we owned the property in question. At this point, Linda is in touch with my dad and is no longer extremely nasty and threatening to him. She's as sweet as can be, promising that she will pay him rent and will be a great tenant. My dad said, "That's fine, you can rent the house, but if you miss a payment, I will begin eviction proceedings immediately." They drew up a contract, signed it, and I think she made 2 rent payments before calling up and asking for more time. He told her, "I'm sorry, Linda, but if you don't have the money in my hands by the due date spelled out on the contract, I am going to evict you." The date came and went, and the money never showed up, and my dad gleefully began the eviction proceedings. They knew my dad meant business and moved out on their own before the sheriff did it for them. We owned that house as a rental property for several years, using the income to fund my mom's medical care. Despite being separated since 1990, my parents stayed married until 2002 so that my mom would have health insurance. My dad gave the house to my mom in the divorce settlement, and it was sold to pay for her care in a nursing facility where she lived from 2000 until her death in 2009. A lot of people are asking where are they now, so here are the answers to a few of those questions. Apologies in advance for over answering this question, but every fiber of my being compels me not to gloss over this. My Aunt Linda had 3 children. Her middle child was Michael. I think he's 5 years older than I am, so about 13 when the story starts in 1990. I was 8, my sister was 7. Michael had always been really close with my sister, and honestly, no one ever thought anything of it. Even before we moved in with them, whenever we saw them on vacations, frequently, as we all spent a lot of time at our grandmother's during the summer, Michael and my sister would disappear and play together, and this increased in frequency after we moved in. In 1996, my sister confessed to me that Michael had been inappropriately doing things to her since a few years before we moved in. This lasted until we moved out. I told my my parents and my dad went to the police. Statements were given. An invasive examination of my sister revealed a long-healed scar. All of this was entered as evidence. It was brought to a prosecutor who believed my sister's story and wanted to prosecute it. But since my cousin Michael denied it, and it's his word against hers, the prosecutor didn't feel she could win with a conviction and the case was dropped. As you can imagine, this deepened the schism between our families, so I have no idea where my aunt is now. I haven't spoken to her since the mid-90s. My sister struggled with self-esteem and feeling like she was worthy of love. She was my best friend in the entire world, really the other half of my whole. She spent her entire life in anguish, and in retrospect, I am completely in awe of her strength to make it as long as she did. She eventually turned to H to numb the pain out just a little bit. Fentanyl really started showing up in H around 2016, and technically that was the mechanism of her death, but I'd argue that Michael killed her. My dad is doing alright. He just retired not that long ago. He is, like I am, struggling with grieving my sister's death. He remarried in 2006. And that is the story of how my neglectful aunt, who went back on her promise to take care of my mom, ultimately ended up getting ousted from her own house because my family bought it. So what would you have done? It's a pretty incredible juxtaposition to see how the dad reacted in the situation versus how the aunt reacted in the situation. The dad wasn't even with the mom from 1990 until 2002, but remained married to her so that she would have life-saving insurance despite whatever it is he wanted to do in his own life. Obviously, he probably did want to get remarried to somebody else because in 2006, he ended up doing so. That's a pretty deep level of selflessness, and even if he wasn't doing it directly for the mom, he was doing it because he cared about the mother of his children. Now compare that to the aunt in this situation who wasn't even working and was stealing from someone who was bedridden. I mean, how much lower does it get than that? Dad was already working around the clock in order to keep up with all these bills for a lot of that time for someone he wasn't even with, and the aunt was so self-serving that she's flipping on their agreement, trying to kick them out, trying to sabotage the original plans for them to buy the house, and most importantly, just not caring about her own sister. It just shows a huge lack of empathy because I'm sure she would want her sister to take care of her if she was in that same medical situation. And that whole situation on the very end about the cousin Michael and the OP's sister was just sad. I'm sure the parents felt very awful about it because they were already dealing with one crisis as it was. The mom was bedbound and the dad was working constantly in order to pay for everything. But really, without the support of more family, it's hard to say what they could have done in that situation instead. So let me know how you see everything here. Do you think the revenge was going too far? Was it justified? And how would you have handled all of this? Let me know down below. My entitled neighbor blocked my car in and then went on vacation. So I decided to get a hilarious revenge. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. So my wife and I live in an old Victorian style house in a college town split into 2 apartments. Our 2 bedrooms downstairs and a 4-bedroom upstairs. The first year was occupied by nursing students who were great. They all finished their rotations and moved out. And we got a set of MBA students who were complete jerks. At first we thought, oh, they're young, we'll politely complain when they don't clean up their dog poop and have a kegger night on a Tuesday or play Call of Duty so loud that it rattles our windows. They'll figure it out and it'll be okay. Well, it wasn't. Their response to our requests were annoyance and non-compliance, which opened the door for me to engage in passive-aggressive revenge tactics, and I have many stories from the year they resided above us. One Monday morning after a pretty raging party upstairs, I came outside to find my car parked in by the upstairs neighbor my wife had nicknamed C-Hammer. Now, in the lease, we had exclusive use of the driveway. Upstairs was supposed to park on the street. However, they often parked behind us when street parking was scarce. So I knocked on the door to get them to move the car so I could go to work. Only there's a problem. C-Hammer had left that morning on spring break vacation. He won't be back for 2 weeks. After I had recovered from contemplating exactly how much of a syphilis-ridden wink sock of a human being you would have to be to illegally park in your downstairs neighbor's parking space and then leave for 2 weeks, I rang the non-emergency police line and explained my situation. They tried to contact C-Hammer to no avail. So my legal recourse was to have the car towed to a legal vacant spot on the street at my own expense, which, given that I had to go to work, was what I would have to do. While I was waiting for the tow truck, I hatched a mature and and a juvenile revenge plan. Here's the juvenile plan first. I got a bottle of .3 brake fluid and a rag out, and utilizing the extent of my artistic abilities, I painted a big old wiener on the hood with a pew 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 of pee going over the roof and left it to bake in. The mature part of the revenge plan came to fruition when the tow truck arrived. Our city has a penchant for street sweeping, and tow cars enthusiastically when doing so. They had just put up signs down one side of our street notifying that they would be sweeping in 4 days. I reserved a spot on that side of the road for Seahammer's car and had the tow truck driver put it there. I let him in on the plan as he was contracted to tow cars for the city that day. He giggled a lot at my slowly emerging wiener artwork and said he'd try and pick up Seahammer's car early, knowing that if he was away for 2 weeks, his company would be able to rack up a nice storage fee. The day came and the tow driver who moved the car came straight to Seahammer's car and towed it. I had dropped a note in Seahammer's letterbox explaining, without being rude, that he had parked me in, and I had to have his car removed at my expense so that I could go to work. Cue him coming back and furiously pounding on my door. "Where's my effing car?" he demanded. I explained I had moved it to the other side of the street into a legal car space because neither the police nor I could contact him. But the city had swept the street last Thursday, so they had towed it. He needed to call the city. He stormed off furious, only to return a few hours later. Apparently, the combination of the city's fine, the tow fee, and 10 days storage there totaled to be over $1,000, and his car had been hilariously vandalized at the tow yard. He demanded I pay. I politely declined, suggesting that he might try small claims court if he could demonstrate that I'd done anything I was liable for. He never took me up on the offer. The artwork had come out great. The car had been left in the rain, so the giant wiener on the hood of his beat-up Civic had rusted in. Apparently, it even earned him the nickname Dick Wheels in class. Before we start talking about the story, the original poster actually included one of the other experiences he had with these people. So, one story. Seahammer had a habit of playing Call of Duty or some other FPS games on his big surround sound TV directly above our bedroom late at night. It was so loud that it would rattle the light fittings in the windows and often would start around 10 p.m. and go past midnight on the weekends. We initially just went upstairs and asked him to be quiet, but he got increasingly hostile until one night he just told me to F off. So I went to the basement, opened the fuse box, and killed the fuses to the upstairs living room. I waited until he came down to fix them around the corner and then killed them again. Repeat ad infinitum. This became my course of action instead of asking him to turn off the noise. If I was feeling particularly vindictive, I'd kill the hot water too. Another one of them, my wife nicknamed Wienerman, had a habit of pissing in the backyard. One morning, my wife copped an eyeful of his junk while he hosed down the side of the shed. Nothing too extreme there. I think she renamed our wireless network to inform him that she'd seen his junk that morning and thought it was small. So now that you know my multiple revenge strategies, am I the jerk? I was surprised here that the original poster didn't ask Seahammer to pay for his towing expenses because he's the one who had to pay for the car to be moved out, but apparently the OP actually answered this and said, "The company I called for the tow was a shop I've had some restoration work done at, so they only charged me about $20. I could have pursued it, but I decided it wasn't even worth my time and effort." And he's probably right. I can't possibly imagine Seahammer actually coughing up $20 when he thinks the OP owes him money. I figured the towing probably wouldn't be that expensive since they only moved it a few feet right across the street, but I think a lot of tow companies have a flat rate minimum just for showing up in the first place, but I didn't realize he had a personal relationship with this tow shop. Living with people that have no consideration at all for you is a huge time and energy sink. The OP obviously had his sleep interrupted, was almost about to miss work because he was blocked in, but not only that, but he has to use his own energy and effort in this kind of ongoing war that they have going on where he's constantly going down to the fuse box, turning it off, hiding somewhere, coming back, turning it off when the guy turns it back on and on and on again. So let me know if you've ever been in a situation where you lived with a vindictive roommate, and if so, what happened? Don't forget you can submit your own stories via the link down below in the description, and let me know jerk or not a jerk and why. Before we jump into the next one, if you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably gonna love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. You're a nurse. Take me to my son's hospital room. FYI, I'm not a nurse. I was a patient. I had a rather terrible Memorial Day weekend. Long and rather boring story short, I had a seizure and face planted on my bedroom door. After a fun ride to the hospital on a backboard and a neck brace, a whole bunch of tests followed and I was admitted because, as it turns out, my autoimmune condition isn't quite being managed as well as I thought it was. After day 3, I feel well enough to walk around and even make a trip to the cafeteria downstairs to get something better than the standard hospital food. Now, I didn't really have that much in the way of clothing. My wife brought my favorite hoodie and clean underthings, but forgot pants of all things. So a really nice nurse scrounged up a pair of the hospital's blue scrub pants for me. So I was happily free of the IV cart for the next few hours and decided to get some chocolate milk and maybe a tasty snack to treat myself and lift my spirits a bit. But it ended up being a rather sad, frustrating affair because I couldn't even make it onto the elevator. I'm pretty slow walking, but I'm just content to not be confined to bed or tangled in tubes, so I enjoy the sunlight and make friendly conversation with the day shift nurses as I pass by. Sometimes it's the small things that make me happy, but all of that happiness goes away as I make it to the waiting area and the elevator lobby when a 60-something-year-old woman with the sourest expression on her face steps off the elevator, like sucked on a whole barrel of lemons type sour, lips puckered up tighter than a cat's butt sour. So I tried to give her a wide berth, but Pucker Face isn't having it. She marches straight up to me and gets well into my personal space and starts demanding that I take her to her son's room and give her an immediate rundown of his medical ailments. This exchange is as follows between me and the Pucker Face Wonder.
Finally, one of you lazy bees is going to take me to my son's hospital room and explain to me my baby boy's condition. I am his mother after all, and that wife of his just hasn't been taking care of him like she should be.
I'm thinking the children's hospital is next door, so I say, what?
Oh, don't play stupid. You're not pretty enough for that. I know my son is here, and I want to see him right this instant. His name is PB. He was brought in on Friday.
I was really confused and feeling bad for PB, but I just say, I don't work here.
What do you mean you don't work here? You have scrubs on in a hospital. You are a nurse. Now take me to my son, B.
I start to get irritated and sassy and I say, dude, I'm not a nurse. Not everyone who wears scrubs is a nurse. I just didn't feel like going to the cafeteria in a gown with my butt flapping in the wind. Puckerface waves her hands as if that's magically going to make me not being a nurse change in any way and says,
you're just using that excuse not to get into trouble for sucking at your job and being a little jerk.
I hold up my wrist, including my lovely bright allergy band, and say, yeah, no, I'm not a nurse. I'm a patient and I really don't have to be explaining this to you. Go find someone else who can help you, but you should probably not be such a bee about it. Puckerface Karen starts inching so close I put my hands up to push her back out of the 4 remaining inches of my personal space.
I will act however I want, and you better believe I'm going to get your lying booty fired. I want to speak to your supervisor. Such unprofessional behavior. And talking back to a patient's family? Your bedside manner is atrocious.
I point towards the growing crowd and say, the head nurse is that way, and for the last time, I don't work here. I'm a patient just like PB. And being a jerk to people, especially nurses, is a good way to get thrown out on your butt by security, so you might want to tone it down. By this time, a couple of nurses come over. All of them have clear name badges and credentials on display, as well as these little communication devices that are like Star Trek communicators but look and perform a lot less cool. The head nurse, who was so sweet just like all the ones I had during my stay, had taken on the scary resting bee face that would make me think twice but didn't even scare the crazy woman. She barges right up to the nurse and demands to be taken to her son, spouting off his name and date of birth to basically everyone on the floor, and then demands that I be fired.
Oh, and fire that bee! She is completely incompetent and rude!
The head nurse deadpans with a chill game I'm rather envious of and says, she doesn't work here, and I'm going to have to ask you to refrain from yelling and harassing people. This is a hospital, and people are trying to heal and rest.
I understand, but this woman isn't letting me see my son, and he needs his mommy right now. She needs to be dealt with for being such a terrible, irresponsible nurse.
I say, but I'm not a nurse. The head nurse chimes in to say, again, OP is not employed by a large Texas hospital in this major metropolitan area. After going back and forth for several minutes, pucker-faced Karen can't seem to wrap her brain around the fact that I don't actually work at the hospital. She's basically a broken record calling for me to get fired like she's forgotten why she's here in the first place. The head nurse is calm and has explained it as many different ways as she possibly can, and is starting to rub her temples with what must be a nasty headache. Finally, after a couple of seconds of quiet, she turns to me and says, hey, OP, you're fired, okay? I say, okay. She then holds an elevator for me and says, go on now, get on your way. I get on the elevator and head downstairs, incredibly grateful to be away from that monstrous woman, and go to collect my well-deserved prize and text my wife about the whole thing. She'll find it hilarious. But the story doesn't end here. As it turns out, when they look up information for her son, who turns out to be 2 rooms down from mine, he specifically said his mother is on the list of people who absolutely, under no circumstances, could be allowed to visit him. So I watched her getting dragged, kicking, screaming, and biting through the hospital's main lobby when I was returning from the cafeteria. The chocolate milk and cookies were twice as tasty after that. Her son turned up that evening to apologize for his mother since news of the crazy lady spread across the floor like wildfire. He and his family were really cool. They also have a restraining order against the crazy mother. Looks like we're gonna be physical therapy buddies now and we can swap crazy mom stories together. Shout out to all of the nurses out there. You are all the real MVPs for the care that you do and for putting up with people's crazy antics. But what should I have done in this situation? There are just some situations where you're telling something to someone and they are just not gonna hear you. They may be physically able to hear you, but it's not gonna get into their brain. What might have happened in this situation is that the mother knew there was gonna be some sort of extreme resistance because she has a restraining order against her, and maybe she was just sitting in her car trying to hype herself up, just telling herself, we're gonna get in there, we're gonna get it, we're gonna do it, we're gonna go, we're gonna find them, we're gonna break the restraining order, and just immediately saw everyone in an adversarial way, no matter who they were. So she opens the door, comes in the hospital, and the first person she sees is a random patient, but she doesn't know that for sure, so she just assumes that's the enemy, and then completely unloads on the OP. And in a situation like that, it's already a self-fulfilling prophecy for this lady. She thought it was gonna be like that, she knew it was gonna be like that, and then she made it like that. So if you're in this situation, let me know how you would have handled it down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. This is a revenge story from my grandfather set in 1948 to 1950. Uncle Joe bought some land with a cabin on a lake in Ontario back in the 1920s or 1930s. Over the years, he kept adding to it. Another cabin, a bunkhouse that slept about 12 people, a boathouse, a shaded outdoor dining area under some trees, etc. Each summer, Uncle Joe would invite various parts of the large family up there, and it would be a grand time. It was just called the camp and was well loved by the family. The only full-time resident of the camp was an older man who bred hunting dogs. This was the perfect area for that sort of thing. There were about 10 well-behaved adult dogs around most of the time, and the kids loved that each year there were puppies around too. But one year, Aunt Mabel and her passel of squalling, ill-behaved children came to the camp. No problem. They were family and welcome, except they stayed most of the summer. When my grandfather got there in July to stay 2 weeks, as he always had done, Mabel and her crew had been there for a while already, and Uncle Joe later said they didn't leave until September. He was too polite to kick them out, but he was fed up, especially when they made noises about coming back the next year. The next year, Uncle Joe asked my grandfather to go with him several weeks early to set up the camp. They talked to the dog breeder and hatched a plan. When Aunt Mabel and the brood arrived, everyone sat down to dinner at the outdoor dining area. The only change from last year was that there were metal plates nailed to the tables now. This caused a couple of raised eyebrows, especially when the explanation was that it was easier to clean this way. But everyone ate happily. Then, when everyone was done eating, my grandfather's time to shine came. He gave a loud whistle and yelled, "Dinner time!" A pack of hounds came from the other end of the camp at a run and jumped on the tables. They started eating the leftovers, then licking all the plates clean. This took less than a minute. Uncle Joe and my grandfather stood nearby nodding approvingly and patting the dogs. Uncle Joe said, "See? Easier to clean this way. Want to go fishing now?" My grandfather reported it was the first time he had literally seen someone's jaw drop open and started gaping open and closed like a fish. Mabel and the brood somehow decided to leave the next morning before breakfast. It had taken 2 weeks to train the dogs, and Uncle Joe and my grandfather had to spend the rest of the summer breaking them of the habit of jumping on the dining tables. Everyone agreed it was worth it. Mabel and the brood never returned to the camp. This was the tale of Mabel who was not able to abide the dogs at the table. I hope this was not a fable. The fable middle of Mabel's canine table staring at Betty Grable and Clark Gable, with guest appearances by Cain and Abel. Okay, that's enough of the rhyming from the comments. This is actually a pretty cool and creative strategy that they used here, but he could have also just not been as polite and said, hey, it's September. You should have left a long time ago. This place isn't meant to support everyone this long. So he used the most non-confrontational roundabout way to make it so that you wouldn't stay as long by spending 2 weeks training these dogs to jump on the table and eat off the plates that were nailed into the tables. That seems like a huge amount of work that could have just instead been accomplished by saying, hey, after July, everyone's got to head out. The end. So let me know if you've ever experienced some sort of non-confrontational revenge like this in your own lives, and if so, was it as creative as this one? Don't forget you can submit your own stories via the link down below in the description. An old couple tries to take our seat on a plane. A few years ago, my significant other and I planned a 3-month trip around the world. Our first flight was from New Zealand to Los Angeles, about 12 to 13 hours. We booked and paid for our flights, and I added the premium economy seats as I'm 6'3" and wanted the extra leg room. It cost an extra $60. This flight was with Air New Zealand. The screen has your name on it when you get to your seat. Welcome, OP. We get on the plane, find our seats, and there is this older couple sitting there in their mid-70s. I asked them if they got confused with their seat numbers. They hadn't. I showed them my ticket and seat number and point to my name on the screen. They then just asked me to sit in their seats, which were 10 rows back. No leg room. You want me to sit in your seats?
Yes, that would be nice, thank you.
I paid extra for these seats and would like to sit in them. Please move to your seats.
Oh, it's not that bad. There's plenty of leg room.
Yeah, there's plenty of leg room in my seats because I paid for it. I'll help move your bag if you need. The flight attendant comes along because the line is getting long.
This man wants us to move seats.
The flight attendant says, sir, please go to your allocated seats. I say, here's my ticket. These people are sitting in my seats. I paid extra because I need the leg room. The flight attendant tells the old people, excuse me, you will have to move to your own seats as you have not paid for these seats.
Well, can we please have an upgrade?
Sorry, this is a full flight, so that is not possible. The old people's face turned into the Pikachu shocked face. I got stink eye from other people on the flight. I paid for the extra leg room and I need it. So was I the jerk? A lot of the times when it comes to old people, I tend to feel for them, but in this case, it seemed like they knew what they were doing, and this probably is something they've done before and it's already worked in the past. Maybe not in a malicious way, maybe they just did it in the past where there was an extra seat and they were able to get it, but it's different when you're actually trying to take the seat from someone who already paid for that seat. So let me know how you would handle the situation down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. A foaming at the mouth Karen thinks that I am just a stupid mall cop. When I tell her to stop, she keeps acting like I'm just security, but then I reveal that I am a real police officer, and that changes everything. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. No lady, I am not a mall cop. I am an actual cop. In a former life, a few years ago now, I was a police officer here in good old England. I moved from a team dealing with action-packed 999 calls, speeding around in old Ford Focuses, and dealing with interesting things to working in a team that supported a large shopping complex. Shoplifting, antisocial behavior, real hard-hitting stuff. The uniform was a white shirt, black tie, and if I was out and about, a stab vest over the top, with one of the big pointy hats too. If I was on break though, I just put on my normal jacket to cover my shoulder numbers. This was mainly for personal security, so to a casual observer, I was just a bloke in a white shirt with a black tie. Cue the moment. I just finished dealing with the paperwork from a shoplifting incident and had a hankering for a sandwich. I locked my vest and hat away, but left my belt of tools. Can of spray, cuffs, and a metal stick. England again. I left all of that on. I popped a plain black jacket over the top and ventured into the shopping complex in search of a footlong. Sandwich specified and acquired, I paid the well-known outlet and ambled to a seating area to mind my own business and chow down. Probably no less than 5 minutes later, I clock a woman, the usual type, attempting to buy a sandwich. Now, from her big arm gestures, I skillfully deduced that she wasn't happy. That's not a crime, so back to my sandwich I went. Until, of course, the voices became raised and a hand was slammed on the counter. I tucked the remnants of my sandwich in the bin and ambled over to see what the commotion was about. Now, working in the team I did, I was a known face in the center, and I enjoy a really long sandwich, so the staff knew me and my job, so they relaxed a little, which really irritated the woman. I quickly realized they didn't have the filling that she wanted, and she was refusing to take no for an answer. So I say, is everything all right here? The woman turns and eyes me over. Now, I'm in my early 20s at the the time, so she makes me for a security guard. Karen says,
Oh, F's sake, I don't need security. This little punk won't make me my effing sandwich.
okay, firstly, you need to stop swearing. Secondly, I'm a level up from security. She did not like this.
Oh, piss off. I just want my sandwich.
She ignores me and goes back to banging her hand on the desk and gesturing wildly at the teen behind the counter. You need to stop that. She rounds on me again.
Oh, I said piss off. I know the management here, so piss off. Back to standing around outside of dinner hams or I'll get you sacked.
I don't care. I am warning you that you need to stop swearing. It's a public order offense.
Oh, what? I just want my effing sandwich and not some jumped up plastic policeman interfering. F off.
Stop swearing. You're causing a scene, and stop hitting that counter or you'll be arrested.
Don't effing tell me what to do. You think you're Big Billy Blanks. Just a water-big cop. You can't arrest me. Get your boss now too.
She was slamming her palms on the sneeze guard with each word, and I think I'd been patient enough at that point, so I unzipped my jacket to reveal that I am, in fact, an ununiformed police constable. Her eyes widen as she sees the cuffs on my belt. Nope, I'm arresting you under Section 5 of the Public Order Act. The arrest is necessary to prevent injury to others and damage to the property. You don't have anything to say, but it may harm your defense, etc., etc. Now, I had no intention of cuffing her. I was twice her size, so not necessary. Instead, I steered her, spluttering, to a table and sat her down as I called for a car to pick us up. After another 30 minutes of her refusing to believe she'd done anything wrong, I eventually gave her a penalty notice to dispose of the matter. So her one sandwich swear fest ended up costing her 80 pounds instead. Am I the jerk? If the place you're trying to buy something says they don't have the thing that you want to buy, they probably just don't have the thing that you want to buy. Unless the person working at the place that you're trying to buy this from personally hates you for some reason, there's no reason why any business would tell you that they don't have something that they actually do have. They want to make the sale, or at the very least, they want to be done with you and have a chance for getting a tip. But somehow that aspect of reality doesn't register in some people's minds when they're in a situation where they want something, they expect something, and then they don't get that thing at whatever business they're at. The OP also said later on that I think they asked her to wait whilst preparing something salady that had ran out, but no, she wanted it right now. I don't understand that mentality. I enjoyed the look on the staff's faces as she realized I wasn't a security guard though. So it sounds like they were even trying to provide her alternate solutions, but she didn't want to wait for them. And this reveal moment probably was a glorious moment to behold for everyone involved except the Karen herself. So if you were the cop here, how would you have handled the situation? Let me know down below and jerk or not a jerk and why. Before we jump into the next one, if you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably gonna love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Karen doesn't want to share a table with me at a busy coffee shop. So yesterday, Sunday, I decided to get up early and get myself organized. I'm a 23-year-old female, my partner who's 26, a male, are in the middle of sorting out our flat and I needed to pick up some bits from Argos and the pet store for my cat. My partner was working. I live in a fairly large city in a retail park and stupidly didn't check the Sunday opening hours for the shops, so I got there at about 9:45 a.m. and most of the shops didn't open until 10:30 a.m. So I found a Costa and decided to have some breakfast and a drink until the shops actually opened. When I got there, the place was pretty dead. There was only me and two other people in there. The table layout was only in groups of 4, so I sat myself down and just played on my phone for a bit. It turns out there's a little kids workshop that goes on every Sunday nearby, so whilst I was sitting there, it got busy very fast, so there was nowhere to sit down. I nearly finished my drink, but it was still only 10:15 a.m., and as it was freezing, I didn't fancy standing outside the shop until it opened. The queue was quite long at this point, with maybe 20 people or so in line. I noticed a lady, Karen, talking to her husband and looking at me. She was maybe 15th in line. They had a little kid with them, maybe 5 or 6 years old. Karen made a beeline for my table with the little kid in tow.
Excuse me, do you mind moving so we can sit down?
You guys are more than welcome to sit with me. I'm just waiting for Argos to open in 10 minutes and then I'll be off.
No, you need to move. We want this table to ourselves. You're finished with your drink, so it's unfair of you to hog the table.
I'm leaving in literally 10 minutes. I don't want to wait outside in the freezing cold. You're more than welcome to share with me until then. By the time your husband's ordered and got your drinks, I'll have left anyway. Karen, now raising her voice, says,
No! You need to move now! I have a kid that needs to sit down and you're being selfish.
Her screeching had alerted one of the baristas who came over and asked if everything was okay.
She has finished her drink and won't move, so we can sit down. Tell her to leave.
I took a pointed sip of my coffee at this point to emphasize that I wasn't actually done yet. The barista says, "Miss, she still is drinking her drink, and she is a paying customer as well. She has a right to sit here." She looks at me and then says, "Do you mind sharing your table?" I went to say that I'd already offered, but Karen cut me off and said,
I don't want to share an effing table with her. She needs to leave.
"This is a family establishment. I suggest you stop swearing and shouting and either share a table with someone or leave."
Fine, I'll leave and I'll tell everyone not to come here.
She storms off, grabbing her husband. The barista rolled his eyes at me and went back to the counter. A minute later, a young mother came over and asked if her kid could sit down with me while she ordered drinks. I said yes. I spent 5 minutes playing with the kid, and by the time the young mother came back, I was packing up my bits to go, and they got a nice table to themselves just by being nice. So, am I the jerk? Steal from my granddad? You lose benefit money. This is a family-style revenge, so get ready. My granddad had lived down the road from us since before I could remember. He would always play with me and my sister when my mom had to work, and I thought of him as my second father. He kept a really expensive platinum necklace on as a keepsake for my grandmother, as he always told me stories about her and the wars he served. Some backstory now on my aunt's family. They were basically people who refused to work and were actually proud of scamming the government to pay for their lifestyle through benefits. They would falsely claim mental disability and being obese as justification to not work. At the time, getting as much as my mom would get at her full-time job. My cousin had literally texted me at the time that he doesn't want to work and play on his Xbox. This B, you are a grown 26-year-old man. Act it. They never visited my granddad, and for good reason. He was physically disgusted with a lot of them. So here's where the story starts. My granddad winds up in a hospital due to a heart attack. My mom, my sister, and me show up to care for him. After 3 days, and when the doctors explain that he hasn't got much time left and to say our goodbyes, my evil aunt rocks up with her family, so much for being so ill that you can't drive to get a job, and they ask how much time he has left. Us, wanting to be civil, told them and led them in to talk to him. He then passes away after another day, and we get together to decide how he would want his funeral. Since my gran was buried in Cornwall, we decided to hold the ceremony there so that they can be buried together. Cornwall was about 300 miles away, but we thought it would be worth it, and I still lay down flowers every year. My evil aunt and her family not only don't want to go down to Cornwall, but they refuse to chip in even 50p down for anything. So they decide to stay up and watch his house. I know, red flags, but we were mourning, so we didn't think it through. The funeral was beautiful, heartfelt eulogies that brought beautiful memory after beautiful memory, and all was well. Except that they had dug the wrong plot and decided to tell us during. Maybe this was one of Granddad's ways of making us laugh up there. So everything was fine until we got home and it was empty. Anything of value was gone, and the only thing left behind were some paintings from my grandma. She was a really good artist, and me liking art as well decided to keep them. We were pissed. We went to my evil aunt's house and they denied everything. We had nothing on her at the time, so we decided to file a police report and leave it at that. Until 3 weeks later, when we came around to visit and see how everyone was coping. My mom had noticed some new expensive things, a new TV, a new PlayStation, the works, and she began to suspect something, as well as me and my sister, until evil cousin comes in and he is wearing my granddad's platinum necklace. I asked him where he got it from, and he told me he bought it with some money that he got from selling herb. Yes, he sold herb as well, but I know that's my granddad's necklace. We get in the car and all of us are seething. They are no longer family. We needed revenge. The revenge time. Now, I mentioned before that they had been falsifying their medical records so that they received benefits from the government. Every time we would go over, we would sneakily take photos of everything that they had just bought, as well as my evil cousin's stash of herb and my uncle's collection of stolen goods. Forgot to mention, he would steal big items off of vans and then sell them online for an extra profit. We collected every text message of them bragging about their many fancy holidays and them refusing to want to work, compiled a case report and anonymously sent it to the claimant investigators and let them do their jobs. A month later, I hear from one of my other cousins, a nice girl training to become a nurse, and I really admire that she didn't take the path of her family, that my evil aunt and uncle got their benefits taken from them and had criminal charges and had to pay restitution to the businesses they stole from, and my evil cousin got arrested for dealing herb. They are now financially destroyed. I think the last time I talked to them was them asking me for money. Since I come from a well-off family, they thought that I could convince my mom. She doesn't want to speak to them, and I told them to piss off. A lot of you are wondering if I ever got the necklace back. Unfortunately, my evil cousin decided to pawn the necklace for money to cover his losses, and I didn't find that out until half a year later. By then, it had been sold. I got some of the stuff my granddad had, some vintage records, some army paraphernalia, a few bits of jewelry, but all the stuff that was personal was long gone. I never talked to them again. So, am I the jerk for getting my revenge and utterly destroying all of their benefits that they were getting from the government? I actually just saw a news story about a woman in Michigan who won the lottery for $1 million, ended up taking the lump sum of $700,000 on that, but then was caught still using food stamps. If you're not aware what food stamps are, they're basically a form of government benefits for people that can't afford to buy food normally. The government will give them these food stamps in the form of a card usually that has a balance on it so you can just buy your groceries with them. So in some of the interviews, this woman who won the lottery for $1 million basically said when she was caught still using food stamps was that I thought they would cut me off, but since they didn't, I thought maybe it was okay because I'm not working. She also said it's hard, I am struggling. I feel that it's okay because I have no income and I have bills to pay. I have 2 houses. And in the story we just saw, obviously this family didn't win $1 million in the lottery, but in their own way, at least from the OP's perspective, they were trying to take advantage of government benefits. I'm assuming part of the stipulation for getting the benefits in their case is to make an earnest effort to try and find work, but when the OP gathers this treasure trove of information saying that they're not going to do that, that's probably at least partially part of the reason why they cut them off from their benefits. It might be considered some sort of benefit fraud. The sad part here is that this family didn't seem to have any emotional value to any of the things they stole from the grandfather's house. They just strictly wanted it because they wanted the money. When on the flip side, obviously the OP here cares a lot about that necklace that his grandfather had, and now he'll never have a chance to get it. I'm not sure exactly why he wouldn't confront the cousin right then and there on the spot. The only possible reason I can really attribute to this is the fact that he was trying to build a case against them and he didn't want to rock the boat in the meantime and get their guard up for some reason. Let me know how you would handle this. If somebody you really cared about in your life died, you went to their funeral, and then you came back to their house and everything was just gone, like in this situation, what would you do? Let me know down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. Am I the jerk for leaving a fake positive pregnancy test in the bedroom to catch my husband's mom snooping? My mother-in-law moved in with us a month ago. I began noticing my stuff in the bedroom being touched, furniture rearranged, stuff moved, etc. I felt like I was going crazy because my husband is the only one who has access to the bedroom and he doesn't usually touch nor come near my things. I figured it must be his mom walking in and snooping on my personal things. I told my husband and he said his mom would never. I had a huge hunch but couldn't install a camera in the bedroom to catch her in the act. So I got me one of those fake positive pregnancy tests and threw it in the bedroom's trash can. Note, the trash can was placed in the corner near the closet. Literally, the next day after I got to work, I got tons of calls and texts from my in-laws congratulating me for my pregnancy. My husband came over to my workplace and was all worked up about it, asking since when was it that I got pregnant and why didn't I tell him? I asked how he found out and he said that his mom found the positive test in the trash can in the bedroom. I asked if his answer just confirmed that she's been snooping in the bedroom all along. He had a realization moment but demanded that we stick to the bigger issue. I said there was no bigger issue because the positive test was fake and this whole thing was done to expose my mother-in-law's snooping. He was not convinced. He had me take an actual test right in front of him and he was livid, asking how could I lie about such a thing and break his mom's heart since I know very well that she longs for kids. I got a lot of crap because of this from him, his mom, and his family, and now they're calling me a liar and a manipulator. So am I the jerk? Well, the mother-in-law shouldn't have gone into her room and started looking in her trash. I think that's the point that the husband is missing here, and also the fact that even if it was true, she would steal the thunder from the original poster here and tell everyone about the pregnancy before she had a chance to tell everyone herself. Making that decision alone, if this was all real, would be pretty hurtful to the OP in the first place. But let me know how you guys see this situation, jerk or not a jerk, and why? Am I the jerk for not wanting to go to my sister's wedding because of my insomnia? I'm a 26-year-old female and my sister, Hannah, is 29. She isn't speaking to me right now because I RSVP'd no to her wedding in January. My mom wants me to change my RSVP, but honestly, the wedding isn't going to be possible for me to attend based on how my sister is acting, and I don't want to go anymore. Ever since I've hit puberty, I've had really bad insomnia. I usually go to bed around 6 a.m., 7 a.m., and wake up around 1 or 2 p.m. I've tried to change my sleep style and I just can't. It's like dealing with international jet lag. Hannah knows this but always forgets and tries to wake me up for family things whenever she visits home, and I have to lock my bedroom door and really work to keep her out. When I got the invitation for Hannah's wedding, I was super excited for her because she has always wanted a big wedding and it looks like she's gonna get it. And that might not be what I want or would want, but she does, and that is exciting and I can acknowledge that. But then I saw the timeline and there's a wedding brunch at 10 a.m. The ceremony is at noon, and then there's the after party. I asked Hannah if I could just come to the afternoon party since I will be sleeping at 10 a.m. and she got furious and started yelling over the phone about how since I'm her sister, I need to be there for the ceremony. I laughed and told her there was no way I could be there on time because it would basically be like trying to get someone on a 9-to-5 work schedule to attend an event at 2 a.m. I probably shouldn't have laughed, but it just felt so ridiculous. If she wanted me to be there for the whole thing, she needed to plan for a time when I could actually attend. I work a full-time job as a freelancer, just not normal hours because of my insomnia. So it really bugs me when people act like my time is worth less than theirs. But now, wedding preparations are happening at the house. The brunch is going to be here. My mom is really upset with me for not coming to the wedding. She wants me to apologize to Hannah and be one of her bridesmaids. Hannah isn't speaking to me at all, but she is speaking to our mom. So maybe that is what she also wants. But I just feel like she owes me the apology, not the other way around. But I might be wrong because this is the first big fancy wedding in our family, and maybe I need to suck it up because it's a tradition to have a morning breakfast or something. So am I the jerk for not wanting to go to my sister's wedding because of my insomnia? It doesn't really seem like the OP wants to make it a priority to go to this wedding in the first place. Even if you couldn't sleep for 24 hours in order to go to your sister's wedding, I think a lot of people would probably choose to do that. And it is true about the fact that it's the equivalent of somebody working a 9-to-5 schedule to attend an event at 2 a.m., but most people would do that. Even though they work a 9-to-5, they would still go at 2 a.m. if that was their sister and they really wanted to be at their wedding. And then the OP said it really bugs me when people act like my time is worth less than theirs. This is probably the only time where that is actually justified because it's her wedding. It is her special time or special day. It's not the special day for the people in attendance of that wedding in the same way that it is for her sister. So at a glance, this seems like some jerkish behavior to me, but let me know how you guys see this down below. Jerk or not a jerk, and why? A Karen in the emergency room thinks that her life and her kid's life is worth more than my daughter's life, who's only 3 years old and has pneumonia, whereas her kid is just in the emergency room because she's constipated. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. This is my encounter with entitled parents in the pediatric emergency room. This happened yesterday. My 3-year-old daughter was diagnosed with bacterial pneumonia and we ended up in the emergency room because she was struggling to breathe. Pneumonia is very serious. She was put on a nebulizer and oxygen and given an IV for more meds while we waited for a room to open up in the PICU. The emergency room was pretty full. The rooms are small and you share them. There is a curtain that divides them. There are no doors, just another curtain. Around 4 p.m., a family arrives with mom, dad, and a 5-year-old daughter. The mom briefly looks in on my side of the room and could see my toddler laying in the bed hooked to machines with an IV. It's obvious that this isn't a stubbed toe. So I can't help but hear the parents explaining why their kid is in the emergency room. Stomach pain. Meanwhile, the kid is asking for something to eat. She sounds quite perky. The parents insisted that she has a kidney infection. Whatever, I don't know her history and I'm not interested. So my daughter was given a steroid through her nebulizer to help her open her airways. Her oxygen, which they wanted 90 or above, kept dipping down into the low 80s, making an alarm sound. The nebulizer makes some noise and the side effect is hyperactivity, so my extremely sick kid was medically wired as heck. Within 30 minutes of arriving, the entitled parents call for a nurse and ask for a private room because their daughter needs to rest somewhere quiet. Meanwhile, their daughter was blasting Ryan's toy reviews from her tablet and loudly demanding chocolate chip cookies and milk. The nurse explains that there are no private rooms in the emergency room. My daughter then starts having a coughing fit, which is scary as her oxygen drops off and she chokes until she vomits. I had 2 nurses in trying to help by suctioning her and patting her back. I'm trying to help her, my daughter is turning blue, and I hear the entitled mother ask the nurse,
Hello, long are they gonna expect us to listen to that noise?
Afterwards, my daughter was wiped out and crying a little, and the entitled mom rang for her nurse again and asked again for someplace quiet so her little girl can rest. Her daughter was making a lot of noise playing with something. Then they started playing with the lights. The room has a switch to control the lights on each side and then a master switch to cut all the lights. My daughter is afraid of the dark. The entitled dad cuts the lights for the room, making it quite dark with the curtain over the doorway drawn. I tell my husband to turn the lights on our side, which he does. The entitled mom calls her nurse to complain that it's too bright for her little girl to sleep. It's 5 p.m. The nurse explained that they are welcome to shut the lights off on their side, but they have to leave our side alone. They complain a bit about how ill their daughter is. Meanwhile, my daughter is drowning in her own lungs, which I'm sure they know as you can hear everything. Then the nurse leaves and they shut the lights off for the entire room again. My husband immediately turns ours on and calls through the current that we need our lights on. Silence. Our nurse comes in to attend my daughter's IV and they attempt to get her to force us to have the lights off. Our nurse basically tells them to knock it off. Then they start pushing for more space. They attempt to push our chair away where my husband is sitting. They put their chair way over on our side of the room, pushing the curtain into our faces essentially. My husband pushes it back. They call and complain, rinse and repeat. Finally, a room in the PICU opens up and we are told that we would be admitted in an hour. The entitled parents complain that they asked for a private room first. The nurse explains that we are being admitted, not given a private room. The entitled parents demand that they be admitted first because their daughter is so much sicker. The nurse says there is no reason for their daughter to be admitted as she is just constipated and as soon as she poops they will be free to go. The parents start freaking out. So that's my story of how the parents of a little girl who needed to take a poop felt that they were more important than my little girl with pneumonia. Many of you say that you would have caused some sort of scene or you would have acted aggressively or called them on their behavior. I worked in an emergency room for 4 years. Unruly parents were often removed from the emergency room without their child. I kept my head down and took it because the care my child was receiving to keep her heart beating was more important. Imagine that. My daughter was never in danger. Her nurses were attentive, helpful, friendly, and responsive. I would have taken whiplashes from Satan himself if it meant my daughter was getting care. The petty complaints and power play coming from the other side of the curtain didn't affect my child at all. The nurses had their number. They were handling it. So with that said, what should I have done? So the other girl was just constipated? It probably would have simplified this whole situation if they would have told her that earlier, but maybe they didn't want to tell the entitled parents that just in case there was some other issue. They were just waiting until she actually pooped to see if anything changed. But either way, I think letting them know probably would have made this whole situation a lot more civil because then they would realize that nothing serious is happening to their little girl, but this other one that they share the same room with has pneumonia, which you can die from. Before we jump into the next one, if you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably gonna love Am I the Genius? Check it out, link down below in the description. Am I the jerk for not sharing my prize with a mentally handicapped person in a contest? Every summer, my community has a cook-off competition. Usually about 20 to 30 individuals or couples try to cook X, Y, and Z, and they can win a portion of the entry ticket fees while the rest go into the community parks. It's not summer yet, but they decided to do it early. This year, it was a pasta sauce. I've been going to these for years, ever since my wife and I moved here, but this is the first time I entered as a competitor. It was earlier today. One of the other competitors, I know her somewhat only in passing, is a 15 or 16-year-old with Asperger's syndrome and autism. I don't know much about this condition evidently. I'll call her Jessica. I guess a lot of people got wind of her being a part of the competition, so we had a news crew here taping her to put her on the news. We've never had this before as far as I know. To make the story short, I won the competition and $1,500. There is no second or third place prize. It's winner takes all. My wife and I were in shock because I like to think of myself as a decent home cook and take pride in my pasta sauce specifically, but to win a contest, we were tickled pink. We celebrated for about 20 minutes when the event organizers came to us. You might be able to guess where this is going, but they asked if we'd give our prize to Jessica as a gesture of goodwill. They said they'd get some publicity since news reporters are here. We obviously said no. $1,500 is a lot of money. So then they asked if we'd like to split it 50-50 with Jessica. Likewise, we said no. I guess some nearby patrons overheard the conversation and chimed in. Apparently, we are jerks for not sharing the prize. After a few moments, there might have been 10 other people all clamoring to us about how we're a disgrace to the community, etc., etc. We had to leave and haven't collected our winnings yet. We're meant to tomorrow from the mayor's office. I can't even imagine what's going to happen tomorrow tomorrow. Are we the jerks for not splitting our winnings with a disabled child for a cooking competition? Before you decide, there's an update in the future. My wife went yesterday to collect our winnings and they shorted her $500. My wife is of the timid type and didn't want a conflict, so she took the reduced winnings and had a few choice words, but otherwise didn't contest it. They gave the rest to Jessica. They made up a fake story to her that they made a second place prize on the spot and Jessica won it. Thanks to the generosity of my wife and I, this was all bogus. We made a post on our community Facebook page saying we had a great time at the competition but didn't appreciate the comments we received or how we were treated. I guess Jessica's family got wind of this and contacted my wife to meet up earlier today. Jessica's family gave us the money back, and while they were excited at first, couldn't take it under false pretenses. They found it condescending to give Jessica a prize just for having ASD. It was a joint decision between Jessica and her parents. We talked a bit and learned that Jessica only joined because she's writing a cookbook for an Asperger's syndrome organization. She's apparently an avid cook and has trouble keeping everything consistent every time, so it's half for her and half for this organization. Part of why she went to the competition is to raise awareness of the cookbook itself as well as ASD/ASS, and hopefully win, of course. We didn't know any of this at all, and I guess this is why the organizers wanted good PR. My wife asked her if there was anything she could do, and she can. She's going out to help where she can or if Jessica needs assistance, like editing, photography, etc. I guess everything turned out okay for everyone in the end except for my contempt towards the competition organizers. And one last final update. Yes, I know mentally handicapped isn't the right verbiage. I've learned a lot about ASD in the last few days. I only kept it to be congruent with the previous post. Autism and Asperger's in particular may not always or ever be a mental handicap. I should have said disabled instead, judging by a few comments. So, going back to the original decision, am I the jerk for not sharing my prize with a mentally disabled person in a contest? If it was so important to have Jessica win this competition in order to get favorable news coverage for their event, why wouldn't they just take that expense themselves rather than trying to force it out of the hands of the people that legitimately did win the competition? If what you're trying to do is get good PR, that's playing with fire. That's the fastest way to get bad PR. Not just neutral, but horrible PR. Especially once word starts spreading that they're trying to manipulate the outcome of this entire event to get the kind of press they want, even if it's condescending to the person that they're giving the prize to. If the whole thing is not for profit all in the first place and they don't have a budget to pay this extra prize out for this newly invented second place, then why are they so concerned about doing this at all to begin with? I don't know. Let me know how you guys see the situation down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. My wife went out last night and didn't come home until this morning. This is horrible. I'm furious right now, but I'm also depressed as heck. I know what I have to do. It's just killing me that I have to do it. It's fresh and it hurts a lot. My wife didn't come home last night. She went out with a couple of girlfriends, which is pretty normal for her. She's normally back around 2 a.m. on these nights, so I waited up. Around 2:30 a.m. I called her to check in. She answered and I could hear people in the background. She told me they went to a party but were leaving in a couple of minutes. She wasn't home by 3 a.m. so I texted. It delivered but no reply. Around 4 a.m. I called again. It rang a couple of times before she sent me to voicemail. My wife came stumbling through the door at 6:47 a.m. this morning. I know the exact time because I was worried. She was wearing a dress that she didn't leave the house in, with mesh leggings I've never seen either. The leggings had clearly been torn and her makeup was smudged. My heart sank when I saw her. My immediate worry was that she had been assaulted. She only shook her head no when I asked her that. I asked her what she had been doing then. She only said that I knew what she had been doing. And that kind of confirmed what the voice in the back of my head had been screaming since she walked in. My wife cheated on me last night. I asked her who it was. She shrugged almost casually and said it was someone they met at the club. She went back to his house and hooked up with him, then Ubered home. She then said she didn't want to fight and just wanted to sleep. So that's what she did. She's still asleep now and didn't even take a shower before passing out. Suffice it to say, our relationship is over. We don't have any kids and we rent, so it shouldn't be an extremely complicated process. I keep trying to reason myself out of it, pretending there might be something to salvage here. I've always maintained that cheating would be a red line for me though. I think I need to stick up to that now. Jumping into the future, there is an update. Alright, things have happened. I am no longer home. I left. I wasn't able to get the day off of work though, so I'm writing this on my lunch now. It's been a struggle keeping myself together today, honestly. I've had to sneak off to the bathroom twice to cry. It's been rough. I'll post something more detailed later on because holy cow, there is a lot. I am exhausted. I've only slept for about 4 hours total since this all happened. Does anyone know if I should post the actual update in a new thread or just update the one I already made. It's going to be a lot of text, probably longer than the first one by a bit. Also, to the woman who felt compelled to send me a topless picture, thanks, but also no thanks. My heart just isn't in that sort of thing right now. Jumping into the future, there is a final update. Me again, folks. Sorry I didn't get around to this sooner. I wasn't able to get the day off of work yesterday because my boss kind of sucks. I was a complete mess at work yesterday though, so I was allowed to take the rest of the week off as vacation, thankfully. I think I went through all the stages of grief while my soon-to-be ex was sleeping. I wasn't expecting my post to get any attention at all. I figured I just needed to try to talk to somebody about it because I was not in a good headspace. I made the post in the morning and by noon she was still conked out in the bedroom. I had processed things a bit more. I had a rough plan in my head that I was starting to set into motion. I made a short list of questions that I wanted answers to. I gathered up all of my important documents, laptop, etc. Then I went to the bedroom and started packing myself a suitcase. I know a lot of folks wanted me to kick her out, and I did consider it, but honestly, I'm not overly attached to this place. We just rent, and I'm in a lucky enough situation to be able to say that paying half of the rent for a few months isn't going to financially end me. It'll sting a little bit, I won't lie, but I'll make it, and I feel like being around this place is only going to remind me of her anyway. I need to be looking forward, not back. She ended up waking up about halfway through me packing my suitcase. There was momentary confusion as she looked around the room, then she just started bawling. Maybe this is awful of me, but I didn't bother comforting her. I told her I had the screenshots of her Uber and text messages from her phone, and that plus her confirmation was enough that things between us were completely done. She didn't answer me and just cried louder. I debated trying to continue the conversation, but I decided to just pack the rest of my suitcase and head back out to the living room until she came out. When she finally left the bedroom, she sat next to me on the couch and asked me if we could talk things through. I told her as calmly as possible that wasn't how things were going to work. I was going to ask questions and I wanted honest answers. She told me she'd be honest, so I proceeded. My voice was shaking the entire time. It was taking me everything to hold it together, but I kept going. The first question, was this the first time she cheated? She started crying before she answered that, then told me no. She had cheated on me multiple times over the course of our relationship. It was, and I'm going to use her words exactly here, quote, just doing the deed, a way for me to let off steam. None of it meant anything. I wrote a comment shortly after making my post that all the love couldn't just fade away in one swoop. Well, it can. It hit me right then that I wasn't dealing with my wife. The person I was married to literally wasn't in the room. This was someone different. She refused to tell me exactly how many times she had cheated, just more than last night. Next question, had she used protection? No hesitation from her before she nodded her head emphatically. She seemed surprised that I'd even asked that. I'm still going to get tested just to be safe. I did some research into timing and I'm going to look after it. Next question, were her friends also cheating on their spouses? Yes and no. I tried to get her to tell me which of her friends were cheating so I could get in contact with their spouses. She probably should have, because her refusal led to me messaging pretty much the romantic partner of every one of her girlfriends I could find on social media. There are a couple I don't know or couldn't find, but I did my part. Next question. This was the answer that gutted me the most. I'm going to use her exact words again. Quote, I need to have variety. I told her that it's not like our bedroom life is dull. She clarified, it's not the same as something new. I didn't even have a response to that one. I had expected something about me working too much or not supporting her emotionally. Nope. She just did other guys because she felt like it and wanted to have some fun. When I didn't respond, she started asking me about counseling and therapy. I reiterated that our relationship was over. I'd be leaving. What she did next disgusted me. My ex tried to do the deed with me. She put her hands on me and started trying to take off my clothes. I felt like I wanted to vomit and pushed her away after a couple of seconds. She just kept telling me that she would figure out a way to fix it, that we would work through it together. I told her that there was no way, and she started bawling again. She went into the bathroom and locked herself inside. I was just sick of everything at that point. I called her mother and told her what was going on. The full story too. The cheating, the questions I had asked, and the fact that I was leaving. I've always had a good relationship with my ex's parents. They both decided to drive to town, which is about an hour away wait for them. Once I knew someone was on the way, I just grabbed my things and left. Her waterworks in the bathroom were just annoying me because it felt hollow to me, especially given the answers to my questions. I ended up packing another bag before I left and took all the things that I could think that I might have some sentimental attachment to with me. I found a parking lot and sat in my car until I was able to get in contact with a buddy for a place to crash. I tried to take a nap, but I was running on way too much adrenaline. I knew when her parents had made it to the apartment because she started calling me. When I didn't answer though, she started texting me. She had gone from sad and crying to furious. Apparently, I am an effing piece of garbage for telling her mom everything. Whoops, I'm not sorry. I have received roughly 100 texts from her since leaving. They range from name calling all the way to begging me to come back to sending me pictures of the food that she ate for some reason. I haven't responded to any of them. I feel like I said my piece before leaving, so that's where I'm at now. We didn't have joint finances, so that part was easy. I canceled all the subscriptions to go to my credit card just to be sure and changed all my important passwords. I'm crashing on a friend's couch for the next bit, but I've got some feelers out there for short-term rental places until I can find something more permanent. I've also got feelers out for a divorce attorney too. A coworker of mine had a recommendation, so barring something better, I'll probably go with them. I also wanted to say that I was shocked how supportive everyone was, and thank you for that. Truly from the bottom of my heart. It isn't easy for me to talk about emotional things with people close to me. This was such an invaluable venting place for me. Thank you all so much. And in conclusion, this wasn't the first time she had cheated on me. I packed up my things and left. I think I'm back on track to being in a better place, and I'm working on initiating the divorce proceedings now. Where should I go from here? The wife in this situation just seems so heartless. Even in the end, after it's all said and done, she cares more about her own reputation than about the hurt that she caused the OP here. And it's absolutely crazy that he's going to continue to pay half of the rent for a place that he's not even living at when he did nothing wrong. He was open and supportive to her going out and partying until 2 a.m. on a regular basis, and then she took that trust that he put in there and totally took advantage of it more than once. She won't even admit to how many times she cheated on him before this. Hopefully he does get tested, and hopefully he doesn't have anything, because that sounds like a very dangerous situation to be in. And the part that I think a lot of people might look over but actually shows a pretty meaningful insight into the relationship these two had was the section where he said, "Maybe this is awful of me, but I didn't bother comforting her." So in the moment after she comes home at almost 7 a.m. after doing the deed with a random guy that she just met, and she won't even give him the dignity to give him any further answers because she, quote, needed to sleep, he still feels bad about himself because he wasn't comforting her? To me, that explains all you need to know about the dynamic between the two of them. It sounds like because this woman has been coddled for far too long, she's developed some sort of egocentric personality where she can only see reality from her own perspective, her own needs, her own wants, her own desires, and can't understand that, for example, where he was telling her the relationship is over, that it actually was over, because that doesn't compute with her own perspective on everything. So hopefully none of you guys ever have to live through something like this. But if any of you have, feel free to submit your stories down below in the description. Let me know what you would do if you were in this situation down below. A Karen gets caught scamming, and when I bring the police to her front door, she cries and begs for forgiveness, begging that I don't press charges on her. She actually convinced a store to sell her my property, making the store think that it was one of their products. Here's how I got my revenge. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. This is the story of how I got a store manager fired for selling my property to a Karen mom. I'm a 26-year-old male, and I'm both autistic and I have severe PTSD from some childhood trauma caused by both my parents that I don't really want to get into. I'm on a few different medications for depression and migraines and have to live in Section 8 housing that I just moved into a few months ago after being on the waiting list for years. I don't like being touched or loud noises, and I certainly don't like seeing anyone take my stuff. When I moved to this city for the Section 8 housing, I'd been gifted a brand new Razor kick scooter by a friend to get around my new area with, and I love it. It's black and made a bit sturdier than the typical ones for an adult to ride, and also has bigger wheels. It also isn't sold in the local stores, but they have similar looking ones in the bike department, and obviously I don't just leave it outside when I go into a store. I fold it up and put it in my cart while shopping. I look kind of twitchy, so most people leave me alone, and I'm just fine with that, but touch me without consent or take my stuff and be ready for a massive freak out. I went down the canned food aisle and started started browsing the chunky soup. When I picked what I'd wanted and put the cans in the cart, I noticed my scooter was gone, and there was a woman with a kid fast walking away while carrying it. I shouted after them to return my scooter, but they ignored me, so I abandoned my cart to give chase. When I caught up to the lady and the kid, I tried to take my scooter back, and the kid screamed so loud my eardrums felt like they were gonna pop, and the Karen mom shoved down while yelling something I didn't hear because my ears were ringing and my brain just stopped working for a moment. A manager noticed the commotion and came to see what the trouble was. I didn't even get a chance to speak when the Karen mom started calling me a creep and was demanding I be thrown out. I kept trying to explain what really happened, but the Karen just kept yelling over me. We were separated and I was made to sit in an office. The manager approached me and I asked him where my scooter was, and he admonished me and said it was sold to the Karen, and I shouldn't have tried to take it from the kid when they were just trying to buy it from the store. Then he pointed out that he had to give Karen a discount just because of the situation. I understandably freaked out and told him that the Karen had taken my scooter that I came into the store with and it wasn't sold there. The manager just looked confused and I nearly broke down. Then I pulled my phone out and showed him a picture a friend had taken of me with the scooter right after I'd gotten it. The next thing I knew, he was running out of the room, and when he finally came back, he said the Karen was long gone. I pulled out my phone and started frantically calling the police. The manager actually tried to stop me by putting his hand over my phone, and I freaked out on him for touching me. He backed off because I nearly kicked him, and he was panicking and saying he'd buy me another scooter from the store. I told him that my scooter was expensive and didn't come from their store, and I wanted mine back. Well, it turned out I had managed to dial 911 because the police were already listening in on the line, and the operator had been trying to get my attention. I just told them to send someone over because my property had been stolen. I had to wait for another hour at least while police showed up and then went through the CCTV footage. It clearly showed me entering the store with the scooter and showed the Karen and her crotch goblin taking it from my cart, and the mess that followed when I tried to get it back. I wanted my scooter back, and the police had to find the Karen from the camera footage of the parking lot. They found her address by running her license plate number that they got from the camera footage, and I got to ride in the back of a police car while we went to her apartment. The officer knocked on the door and I didn't hear the situation because I was still sitting in the back of the police car with the windows closed. But the Karen mom looked really angry and eventually brought out the scooter after some back and forth. She practically had to wring it out of her kid's hands. I got let out of the car and they asked me if I wanted to press charges for assault because the mother had shoved me. She looked ghost white when I said that I did want that, but the Karen started crying and begging me. She said that she honestly thought it was something the store was selling and it was her kid's birthday. I yelled that that didn't excuse her from stealing from someone else's cart, let alone from a legally disabled man. Her kid was also loudly crying and my ears were hurting again, so I said I wouldn't press charges on her if she didn't come near me or my stuff again, but I wanted something done about the manager at the store for letting this happen. And I was ready to ride my scooter all the way back there, but the police convinced me that it'd be better if I just went home and calmed down. I later learned on my next visit to the store a couple days later that the manager was fired over what happened because he already had a few complaints against him and didn't bother to check that the scooter wasn't one of theirs. And the store gave the Karen and her kid a replacement Razor scooter that they had in stock because she'd already paid for one. But she was also banned for 6 months from the store for shoving me and stealing my property. I was also given a $50 gift card for some free groceries since I wasn't able to buy anything the day that mess happened. Now every time I go into that store, a few of the employees know me by name, and one actually told a random kid to leave me alone when he asked about my scooter. I certainly keep a better eye on it now too. I've also since added a name tag on the underside of my scooter with my full name on it just in case this ever happens again. So, am I the jerk? What should I have done? So just like the original poster here said, even if this was a product that actually sold in the store, she just yoinked it out of his shopping cart. That's like if somebody gets the last loaf of bread and you just go into their shopping cart and steal that because, hey, it was the last one. And she obviously knew she did something wrong because as soon as she bought it, she was out of there. I don't know how they were even able to ring up this scooter unless they manually entered in a price, because at most stores, if there's not something to scan, they're not going to be able to sell it to you unless they call a manager, override it, assign a price based on what they think the price is or what you tell them the price is. But all of that takes some time unless the person that she was checking out with was already a manager or had access to doing that for some reason. And I'm also surprised they actually took action to find her license plate, connect it to an address, and go there, because it seems like in a lot of places, when you have something stolen, the police don't really want to spend the time or care to figure it out. But maybe it's not like that everywhere, because clearly here they seem to care a lot about getting a scooter back. So anyway, let me know how you guys would have handled this situation down below, and jerk or not a jerk and why. Before we jump into the next one, if you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably gonna love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. A lady goes buck wild and gets angry at me for saying that I don't work at the grocery store. She tries to get me fired, then tries to get me charged for assault. The manager and the police both think that I really did assault her, and that's where things get ugly. Here's what happened. There have been a few times when people have stopped me to ask if I work there, at whatever store we're at, but I've always just been able to say no, sorry, and that's been the end of it. But today, that wasn't the case at all. This was one of those ordeals that never actually happens in the real world, or so I thought. This is what actually happens when things get out of hand. This one is a long one, but it'll be worth your time. So a bit of background about me. I'm a bodybuilder slash powerlifter, and nutrition is very important to what I do. Whenever I go shopping, I like to check the nutrition labels on the ingredients and the foods that I'm interested in. That way I can eat enough food to not be hungry without sacrificing flavor and still fitting it into my daily calorie intake. As you can imagine, I will check multiple different versions of the same ingredients in an aisle and put them back as I search for the best option. Well, earlier today, I went on a pretty big restock for the house. I also found a bunch of new recipes that I want to try, some of which called for some ingredients I don't often work with. For the most part, the store wasn't too busy and nobody really bothered me as I walked up and down each aisle. I also had some earbuds in and my phone out with my shopping list on it. Keep in mind that I'm also wearing a tank top and sweatpants, which you're probably not going to get away with wearing as a grocery store employee. As I'm looking through the spices in the baking aisle, I hear someone yelling over my music. It was kind of surprising since I listened to it pretty loud. So I took an earbud out and looked over, and this lady just said to me,
I can't believe they just let employees wear those stupid things!
I cut her off and said, yeah, I wouldn't know because I don't work here. This seemed to upset her greatly, as she got really aggressive when she responded saying,
Don't effing lie to me! I've seen you stocking the shelves! I'm a paying customer and you need to help me right now!
I'm a very easygoing guy, but when a random stranger speaks to me like this, I'm not going to put up with it. So I said, I don't have to do squat, especially if you talk to me like that. Get lost. She lost something, that's for sure. She yelled,
Excuse me? How the F dare you?
I just turned away to walk at that point, and all of a sudden she grabs the back of my tank top and I yank myself away saying, What the? Lady, don't touch me! She takes a couple steps back, probably realizing that I am not the kind of person you want to pick a fight with, and then she says,
Fine then, I'm finding a manager. Say goodbye to your job, you lazy, useless piece of trash.
I was already putting my earbuds back in, so I just said, whatever lady, bye. I grabbed my spices as she walked off in a huff and continued my shopping. I wasn't even wearing what employees wear at this store. Like, how could I possibly be mistaken for an employee? I seriously cannot stress enough how much I don't look like I work there. A couple minutes later, I'm in the next aisle over and I see her again with a manager. I don't hear what she's saying because I've got my music on, but with the way she was pointing her finger, I'd imagine she was probably saying that I'm the one who didn't help her. They started walking up and I took both earbuds out this time. The manager approaches me and I hear the lady saying,
He should be fired for cussing at me and threatening me.
But the manager says, yeah, he doesn't work here. He's wearing a tank top and that's definitely against dress code. Well, anywhere. She didn't like that answer.
Then why is he stocking your shelves?
I chime in and say, I'm comparing calories in foods and picking the best ones to stay healthy. Maybe you should try it sometime. You definitely look like you need it. She stands there for a moment with this expression on her face that looked like her brain didn't process what I just said. Then she got surprisingly calm. It was getting kind of pathetic at that point. At least I thought so, but the manager actually seemed to side with her and said, Still, I can't have anyone assaulting people in my store. Whoa, what? I must have missed the part where she said that I assaulted her. So I asked him to repeat himself and he explains that it is a criminal offense to assault someone and that the police could get involved. The lady goes from pissed off to real smug, like I'm about to get it. Good, I said. Call them down here. I'll wait. I know this store has security cameras on every aisle, and I am so sick of people like her getting away with this level of entitlement entitlement. That I didn't mind waiting. Police show up a few more minutes later, we go back to the office in the store, and they're really grilling me, asking me why I would attack someone, if I was on any substances. I'm kind of used to this treatment. People take one look at me and just assume I'm some sort of meathead bodybuilder with roid rage. I answer all their questions by saying, look at the security footage, it will answer all of your questions. The more I said it, the more frustrated they got. Finally, they leave the room. I just wait there patiently for about 45 minutes. Then they come back and apologize. The manager told us that you assaulted her. We should have checked the footage, but you do fit the profile. I then say, why? Because I have bigger muscles than most people? Is that a crime? They know they can't really say or do much about it since they made some pretty big assumptions. If you like, you can press charges against her because she did grab you according to the security camera footage. And you know what? I said that I would like to press charges. Normally I don't like to waste my time dealing with courts, but hours of my day were already wasted today, and I want her to know that she can't get away with it. A few minutes later, the manager offers to let me just go home with my groceries for free. Probably a bit scared that I might sue the store for discrimination or something since I was so ready to press charges on the lady. On my way out, I saw them putting her into the back of a police car, and she was screaming profanities at the officers. I've already talked to an attorney who is in the process of obtaining the security footage. The court date is going to be in March, but should be pretty straightforward since the evidence is in my favor. I've never actually had to press charges like this before, so I have no idea what to expect. All I know is that even if she only ends up getting fined $1 or has to do even a minute of community service, I'll have a smile on my face. Anyway, that's been my crazy day. I know there are a lot of stories of crazy Karens and stuff, and I always thought they were entertaining and would sometimes even think about what I would do in a similar situation. My reaction wasn't what I thought it would be though, and it wasn't as entertaining being on the receiving end of the story. At least I got some free groceries out of it though. I wanted to clarify how the process behind pressing charges is going to work. The court date that I got is really just more of a screening where I will answer some questions and find out what happens next. That's also why it's happening all the way in March. Due to the pandemic, they are trying to cut down on in-person interactions, so this will happen over a video conference call. My attorney friend got back to me a couple hours after I posted this and explained that this will mostly be hands-off on my part and I won't have to worry about the court costs, legal fees, or hiring him to represent me. I hope that clarifies things as I myself didn't really understand what the paperwork I got yesterday meant. It's unlikely I'll be called as a witness in court, and since it's a criminal case, I'm not sure if I'll be able to find out what she gets charged with, if anything. So now that it's all said and done, am I the jerk? I can't believe in this situation the manager just automatically believed the woman before any evidence was provided. The manager didn't even take a neutral stance. He just straight up assumed that the original poster here was lying. And then later on, when it was clear that he was telling the truth, they were so afraid of getting sued that they just gave him the free groceries. One of the top comments that the OP responded to actually addressed this, saying, I can't believe the manager would assume you assaulted her when they could have easily checked to get the story straight before telling the cops. So happy you stood your ground here. And the OP seems to think that it's because of how he looks, because he has big muscles, kind of like how he was saying in the post. Sadly, I'm not surprised at all. People will see a big dude with muscles and a small woman, and they'll immediately assume that strength equals anger. In reality, I never get angry in situations where I probably should because I work out all of that in the gym. All I want is for people to respect each other and live a healthy lifestyle where they're happy. None of us are perfect, but we can try to be better every day. So if you were put in a situation like this, would you be able to keep a level head? How would you react? Let me know down below in jerk or not a jerk and why. This is the story about how I got fired from Target. About 25 years ago, I had just gotten off my shift with a law enforcement agency. I had not bothered to fully change out of my uniform, and I still have my tan tactical pants on and a brand new red Henley type of shirt that I pulled over my department polo shirt. And at that time, I decided to stop at the local Target in order to do some last minute Christmas shopping. Because I am also 6 foot 6 inches, I also typically get asked by people to help them get things off of the higher shelves. At one point, I had a Karen following me asking me to get things off higher shelves for her, and then she started asking me about pricing, and I had no idea why, not even thinking about my tan pants and red shirt. So I asked her to please leave me alone so I could do my shopping in peace. Little did I know, she would go and find a manager and complain about the really tall employee ignoring her needs. While peacefully shopping, I was approached by Karen and the manager, with the manager telling me that I was supposed to be providing customer service, especially during the holiday season, and that my rudeness would not be tolerated again in her store. The manager also said that I should clock out out and not come back to work and that I would not be getting my employee discount with my purchase that evening. I had nothing. Simply nothing to say because I've never been fired from Target before. I took the last of my shopping to the checkout lane where the manager and the Karen followed me. It was at that time while I was checking out that I opened my wallet with my badge and credentials in it. And then I had the presence of mind to say something to the manager, something along the lines of, "Do you even know who works for you?" The Karen harumphed off and the manager's soul seemed to depart her body. The best part was the cashier and the security guy cracking up. So am I the jerk for how I handled the situation where I was fired from Target when I never actually worked there? It seems like this type of situation most commonly happens at Target, more so than pretty much any other place. And a big part of that is because it's probably the most simple and recognizable uniform of any major retailer, at least in the US. I remember a while back there were a bunch of videos that people made, sort of prank videos people would do where they would go into Target, wear the red shirt and the tan pants and try to pretend to be Target employees and then just annoy people who thought that they actually did work there. Sometimes they would even get the badge that pins on their shirt that has a name on it to look even more legitimate. That kind of died down for a while, but now, recently, I see them all the time. Tons of people still pretending to be Target and Walmart employees and then just annoying people. I even saw one earlier today, so this is a trend that was gone for a while it seemed like, and now it's back in full force. But in this situation, this guy was just trying to live his life, and he ended up getting fired from a job he didn't even have. So let me know what you would do if you're in this situation down below, and jerk or not a jerk and why. Make false accusations, lose your business. Here's the background. I used to work at a small to mid-sized law firm. At the time, there were 10 lawyers including the owner. His setup was basically to do as little work as possible and just take a cut from the rest of us as independent contractors. He was a very much, it doesn't matter what they can afford, bill as much as you can type scumbag. One thing the firm handled was real estate law. I rarely looked after any real estate transactions, save maybe 2 to 3 per year over the 2 years that I worked there. At the time, he decided to let me go. He made a list of reasons, all of which were fabricated. Client complaints, missed court dates, etc. It came down to me asking for a bigger cut and him not wanting to pay it. I felt it wasn't worth going after him in court. However, shortly after my contract was terminated, I was reviewing my insurance and stumbled upon the fact that no less than 60 real estate transactions were filed with my bar under my name. Well, one of the rules where I practice is that in a situation like this, my name has to be on the retainer agreement and I have to have worked on the file in some capacity. So having a friend or two at the firm who were practically 1 foot out the door already, I got many of the phone numbers for these clients that weren't mine and asked for a copy of the retainer for my records. Most of them had no problem sending a copy. Obviously, I was on none of them. I quickly contacted the bar association. The whole thing ended up being a mess for this guy. Besides an intensely scrutinized audit, it turned out that he had done this for every lawyer in the firm. He eventually was ordered to pay an absolutely insane fine, think high 6 figures, and had his license suspended for a few years. The firm shut down and he never went on to practice again. Felt good. But am I the jerk? This guy, the boss here, sounds like he was going to cut corners no matter what, and eventually something was going to catch up with him. Whether it was using other attorneys' names to put on for real estate transactions or something else, eventually this guy was probably going to do something that would allow him to either work less or make more money because he was paying less. And one of those things along the way would probably backfire. So let me know how you would have handled the situation if you were in it down below, and jerk or not a jerk and why. A Karen thinks I know nothing about business because I'm a woman and demands to be served by a man. But I am the department manager. So when a man does come to serve her, he has to come to me because I'm his manager. And the Karen did not like that one bit. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. I work in a hardware store and a woman who was one of our customers demanded to speak to a male employee because she thought that I couldn't do my job. So I maliciously complied. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. This happened 16 years ago. When I was about 20 years old, I was a department manager in a big box hardware store. People said I acted 25, but I didn't even look 18. As a young female, I saw my fair amount of discrimination, but the worst always came from women. This is the story of one such woman. I managed the paint department. I had 3 associates who worked for me. They loved me as a boss because I bought them a department radio, took the shifts they didn't want, gentleman worked Friday close and Saturday mid, so my two younger guys could have time to have fun on Friday nights, and the older gentleman took early Saturday morning so they could sleep off their fun. In trade, I gave the older gentleman his ideal schedule. My team was awesome. One day, I was in the department alone, and a lady came up and asked me where she could find the 5-gallon oil-based primer. I let her know that my location didn't carry the 5-gallon size of that primer. She told me that we did and said that it was shelved right there, suggesting that I was too stupid to remember. Her husband gave me an apologetic look. I let her know that another location had what she was looking for and that it was in fact in that exact location at that store. She let me know how stupid she thought I was for thinking that she could mix up stores. Then she began yelling and loudly insisting that I get a man out there to help her because she wanted someone competent and not a stupid little girl. Her husband actually tried to step in at that point, but I just smiled at her and let her know that a male paint associate would be clocking in any minute and that I would be happy to direct him to her as soon as he is on the clock. I smiled and waited for Joe to clock in. Joe was great and I knew he could handle this or I wouldn't have put him in this situation, but Joe was also new. He was learning things super quick but still relied on the rest of us for help. When I saw Joe walking up, I quickly said that there was a customer who needed help. I let him know that she was upset and asked him to do his best to answer her questions. Joe walked up to the lady and she said, "Oh, finally a man!" She asked her question, explained where the product should be, and waited. Joe calmly let her know that he had never seen us carry 5-gallon sizes of that oil-based primer, but he said that he could check with the paint department manager. She was happy and loudly said that she was happy to get some real help. Joe walked up to me and started to ask me about 5-gallon oil-based primers. The lady quickly walked up and asked him what he was doing. He turned around and said, "This is my manager. She runs this department." The husband laughed out loud. The woman stormed off and I bought Joe lunch. Was I the jerk? It's a shame that the OP has to deal with people like this, and it's kind of surprising that, according to the OP, the worst of this type of discrimination always seems to come from other women. I think a lot of people would probably assume that a woman wouldn't have these sort of assumptions and stereotypes about other women, but according to the OP, that's the most common scenario for this type of situation to happen. It sounds like the guy this lady came with, her husband, is used to seeing this because he was already trying to mouth an apology, and at the end, he just bursts out laughing at his wife for how foolish she seemed by acting like this. So if you're in this situation, let me know how you would have handled this down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. A bank customer did not expect her to be the manager. In my first banking job, the branch manager was a 23-year-old Asian woman. The branch office I worked in is in a wealthy neighborhood with mostly white retirees. We had a lot of sweet little old ladies who just loved coming into our branch because out of the 6 people working there, it was all women and 1 man, and the 1 man was a bank teller. So all the bankers and the manager and the assistant manager were all young women. We did not do this on purpose, and it was only like this for a few months, but the old ladies loved it because back in their day, women were the secretaries and not the bankers. Anyway, some of the little old men did not care for it as much. One time, this man comes in storming, pissed off about a $3 charge on his account, and says, "I want to speak to your manager. Is he in?" I looked at him and said, "Our manager is here. Let me call her." The look on his face when he saw our bombshell of a manager come strutting out to meet with him was priceless. Somebody followed up with a story that said, "Dude, I get this. We occasionally have this old dude who comes into our bank who refuses to work with women. The problem is our manager was a woman and had no sympathy for the sexist dude. Our new manager is a flamboyantly gay guy, so I'm sure that will come with its own fun times." There's a lot of people that are just stuck in their own ways of thinking, like in both of these stories. In the first one, the old man doesn't want to speak to the woman manager because he's used to the managers being men, but at a certain point, if he's going to get anything done in that bank, he's going to have to accept that that's how it is, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. It shouldn't matter what the gender of the manager at that bank is, because either way, they're probably going to help you out with whatever you need. But let me know if you've ever seen any situations like this. Give me the money you put aside for your baby because you might still miscarry. So 2 years ago, I got pregnant for the first time. Chris, my husband, and I told our families, and Rory, Chris's dad, my father-in-law, was overjoyed at the idea of a grandchild. And at Lisa's suggestion, Lisa is Chris's mom, my mother-in-law, Rory, my father-in-law, gave me and Chris a check for £1,000. He said this was to pay for a nursery and the rest should be kept safe until the baby was 18. Shortly after this, when I was at about 12 weeks, I had a miscarriage. We tried to give Rory his money back, but he asked if we were ever going to try again. We said someday, but not anytime soon. Rory said to put the money in a savings account and add to it so that when we do have a baby, we have the money for it. Chris and I agreed, and after that, we made an an account, deposited the check, and tried to put in about £10 per week. As it's been 2 years of regular topping up, the account currently has around £2,500 in it. We've missed a week here or there, but we have never taken money out of it. Chris and I have both been to therapy and agreed to try again. I'm currently 4 months pregnant. We waited this time until we were both out of the danger zone, a period where miscarriage rates are higher, before we invited our families over to our place and told them over lunch. Everyone seemed really happy for us, except for my brother Tom. I pulled Tom to one side and asked why the long face, and he told me that he knew about the baby fund and had been intending to ask me for it. In the conversation after that, Tom said that Sean, my nephew, is going to university in a couple of years. He's 16 now, and Tom doesn't feel that maintenance grants will be enough for Sean to live comfortably. These grants are up to £7,500 per year. I said that Sean could get a job, and Tom said that he doesn't want Sean working through A-levels because it'll affect his grades. Tom also said that he and his wife, who are both in their mid-30s, had Sean at the time when they would have gone to university, so they couldn't go, and because of this, it's important to them that Sean goes. He figured as me and Chris are on a £10 per hour, and Tom and his wife are on a £9 per hour, this means that we automatically have money to burn. I replied that the baby fund was, shockingly enough, for my baby. Tom then said, I figured you know, the last time, then this one, it isn't a done deal yet. I told him no. Tom then immediately told Kelly, our mom, how I was refusing to give him the baby fund, and now both Tom and my mom, Kelly, are mad because Sean needs the money and we're a family. Sean did not even know Tom was asking me for the money, or that the money existed. And for some side clarification, Kelly is my and Tom's mom, Sean's grandmother. Tom and his wife, who isn't relevant to this story, are Sean's parents. This is a story of intergenerational entitlement. So going back to the story, to this day, the only people to ever contribute to the baby fund are Rory with his starter money, and me and Chris with our £10 per week and bonuses. We don't even consider that money to be ours anymore. And even when Chris and I were in dire straits and could really have done with some of the money in the fund, we still didn't touch it, because as far as we're concerned, that's our baby's money. It turns out that Lisa, my mother-in-law, told Kelly, my mom, about the existence of the baby fund years ago, as Kelly makes quite a bit of money, so Lisa, my mother-in-law, thought that Kelly might want to contribute to the fund. Tom complained to Kelly about not having enough money, so Kelly told Tom about the baby fund and said, what's the harm in asking? Tom and his wife have had 16 years to save up. Me and Chris have never taken a holiday, and they go on 2 per year. And then when they realized they had no savings left, they decided to try and take the money that the entire family knows is for mine and Chris's baby, while telling me that there's still a chance I'll miscarry since I've already miscarried once. Also, they have a daughter who's about 10, so if I give my current baby fund to Sean and then start rebuilding, there's no way that 8 years from now they won't ask for my new fund for the daughter. Neither kid is entitled, but they could really do with an out to get away from their crazy entitled parents, but if it weren't for them, then we wouldn't even be on speaking terms with Tom. So what should we do? So before I even talk about the actual story, I have no idea why the OP decided to name everyone by their first name in this instead of just saying my mother-in-law, my mother, my father. I thought there was going to be some purpose to that at the end of the story, but no, it's just a whole lot of names. That's why I kept trying to clarify who was the brother, who was the nephew, etc., etc. So the actual story is a pretty bizarre case of entitlement. Her brother wants the money from their baby fund because he thinks that they might have a miscarriage. That's a pretty dark thought to have, and the fact that he had a long face as if he was upset or disappointed that she did get pregnant and didn't have a miscarriage yet is pretty sad. That your own brother would be rooting for you to have a miscarriage because it would mean that he would get some extra money out of it, or at least that's how he sees it, because what logic would possibly make him think that he would get the money from this when this is for the baby fund? Even if his sister, the OP here, did have a miscarriage, what makes him think that they wouldn't try to have another baby? This is the kind of thing that breaks families apart over something as trivial as money in a situation like this. It's sad that the OP even has these kind of people in her life to begin with, but at least she does have Rory, her father-in-law, who seems to be one of the few people in the situation that actually care. Even when she had the miscarriage the first time, he said, you know, if you're gonna have another baby, just hang on to it until you have that baby, and you can use it for that baby. Everything else from the perspective of Tom and the mom is a series of weird mental gymnastics to try and justify this whole thing. So if this happened to you with your own family, would you be okay with it? Would you say something? If so, let me know what you would say down below. An entitled mother thinks that she has the right to set up camp in my living room. Here's some background. For my first semester in university, I had decided to live in dorms because they were so close to campus and my scholarship would cover a portion of the housing. These dorms were suite style, so they had 5 bedrooms with 2 people in each room. And we all shared a common area in the censor. The entitled kid in this story was the only one who knew her roommate beforehand because they had moved here from Texas together. Here's the cast. K is my dorm mate, M is K's roommate, EM, the entitled mother, is K's squatter mom, RA is the resident assistant, and I'm the OP. So the first day of check-in was absolutely insane. With 10 students in each room, we had 80 people on each floor, and the RA had to check in each person individually. So we really didn't get time to know each other between the line and unpacking. Everyone's parents were there to help them move and to say goodbye. Our floor was all freshmen. Because of this, nobody really thought twice about the entitled mother still being there that night. My roommate and I went to the opening ceremonies and didn't get home until probably 1 a.m. and we were really surprised to see the entitled mother asleep on the couch. We chalked it up to thinking that her flight back to Texas may not be until the next day and just went to bed. That morning, we woke up to the most delicious smell of bacon, omelets, and waffles. Everyone slowly filed out of their rooms thinking one of our dorm mates had made us food before our first day of class. Boy, were we wrong. The entitled mother had gone through the fridge and the cupboards taking ingredients from wherever she could find, meaning it was our food. As a student with no job at that point, the food she took from me and my other roommates was supposed to last the first couple weeks of school until we could get a job or parents sent some money. All of us were very obviously annoyed, but she seemed completely oblivious to the dirty looks. The entitled mother and Kay were just munching away while their dishes and mess were piled all over the counter. Eventually, M, Kay's roommate, walks out and they excitedly tell her that they made breakfast for her too. We were all dumbfounded, but kept quiet as we hurried to eat cereal or toast. My classes were in the afternoon, so I didn't get back from campus until around 4:30 p.m. I was expecting the mess to be cleaned and the entitled mother to be gone, but as I walked in, the counters were still covered in their dishes and the entitled mother, K, and M were playing on my Xbox. I cleared my throat to get their attention. All I got was a side glance from M, who looked like she'd been caught doing something really bad. As I peer further over the couch, I realized they went through all of my tech box to set up my Xbox, leaving everything from my Wii to all of my movies scattered on the ground. I was absolutely livid. I went and unplugged the Xbox in the middle of their game. This made the entitled mother completely lose it.
You brats, we were in the middle of something!
Yeah, in the middle of my stuff. I expect you to put it all away. After hearing that, Kay tried to get up to start clearing my stuff. She couldn't even get all the way off the couch before the entitled mother tugged her back down.
Kay doesn't listen to you, she listens to me! Maybe ask me before you're assuming you're in charge!
I didn't feel the need to deal with any more of this nonsense, so I gathered all my things and shoved them into my room. Fast forward 2 weeks and we have our floor meeting with the RA. He explained certain rules like when the quiet hours are and that a guest can only stay 2 nights consecutively. At this point, the entitled mother had fully turned our living room into her bedroom by putting sheets on the couch and the whole 9 yards. K and M shared a glance and ran back to our dorm. The second the meeting was over, I marched up to the RA and tell him that someone has had a guest since the first day of class. He looks absolutely dumbfounded as I lead him to our dorm. When I walk in, K and M are sitting on the couch as if nothing happened and there was no signs of the entitled mother. The RA took K into the hallway and they talked for 10 minutes. Apparently, she had been begging the entitled mother to leave, but she just wouldn't. After hearing the rule, K went and told the entitled mother she has 5 minutes to get out or she won't be allowed to live there anymore. That isn't true, but she needed to sound serious. The entitled mother got up and left to drive back to Texas, which she could have done at any moment. The real kicker of this story is that there was a bed and breakfast not even 30 yards from the building's entrance. So, what should we have done? Part of me wants to think that maybe the entitled mother was really in dire straits and she had nowhere else to go, and she's already exhausted all of her other options, and this was her last resort before ending up homeless on the street, or in an even worse scenario. But right off the bat, just the fact that she wakes up the next morning, steals all the other students' food, who most of which don't even have jobs, cooks up this big breakfast but only for her, M, and K, makes it seem like that's probably not the case. Because if she really was, she would be laying low, trying to stay out of people's way, and just not be noticed in general. Taking other people's food that you live with and eating it is probably the quickest way to make everyone living with you not like you anymore. And in the end, apparently going back to Texas was an option all along. If what Kay said was true and she's been begging her mom to leave this entire time, then I feel bad for Kay, because maybe they have some sort of weird power dynamic where the mother just imposes and Kay can do nothing about it. But let me know how you guys see this situation and how would you have handled it? Let me know down below. Am I the jerk for charging to take photos of the bride? I'm a photographer and one of my family members had sent me a couple that was looking for a wedding photographer. From the get-go, this couple was being very frugal with their money. Since I had sympathy, I cut my prices to help lower that burden. From the get-go, they tried cutting every corner they could to get the most out of me. They wanted to dress up their kid, bring them to their engagement shoot so they could also sneak in some family photos. Not cool, I didn't allow it. They booked me for 3 hours of their wedding, and I knew this was going to pose a problem, but 3 was all they could afford and apparently all they needed. Leading up to the wedding, I knew that we didn't have any time to spare when it came to the photos. I asked the bride for the itinerary for the wedding and also all must-have photos with an example for her to use. The day before the wedding, she says there isn't a schedule and we will wing it. And the shot list definitely showed that someone did it last minute. The wedding day comes and everything is an unorganized disaster. There were very few moments where the bride and groom could actually be taken away. The wedding was at 5 on a Friday. I was booked from 5 to 8. While I'm capturing all of the important shots on the list, I'm trying to grab solo photos of the bride and groom, but they don't make time for me. Something was always coming up to where when we were ready to go outside, they would tell me to wait. I even pushed my time to 8:30 because I knew there would be some regret later. So I tell them I'm leaving and I just need a photo of them too. The groom comes out yelling because I've taken him away from the party to take, quote, stupid pictures. And honestly, the behavior was grotesque. I took the picture and left. A week passes and I get a text from the bride at 11 p.m. Oh my God, I was just having so much fun that I didn't realize we didn't take any solo shots of myself. And she didn't, because she wouldn't make time to take them, because she wouldn't give me a schedule that we could actually work with. So now the bride is requesting that I do a greatly discounted or free bridal shoot for her, since I didn't get any solo shots from the wedding. Am I the jerk for charging her for these photos? This is a pretty cut and dry situation. This isn't even the OP's family, it's just some couple that the OP's family recommended to her. And it sounds like the OP's already gone out of their way to give discounts, stay later than was necessary, and worked around a non-existent schedule in order to make this happen. So there's no need to do this for free or at a great discount at all. Just say how much it costs to do a full bridal shoot, and if she wants to do it, she'll pay that amount. If not, it's not like other photographers can't do this. It doesn't have to be OP specifically. I think the bride just wants it to be the OP so that it's greatly discounted or free. And speaking about the family member that actually recommended these people, the OP said, "Trust me, my family member has apologized profusely, especially after their engagement session, which definitely foreshadowed what was going to happen at the wedding, but that's another story." So if you were in the situation, would you see this couple as frugal or entitled? And how would you handle it? Jerk or not a jerk, and why? I just found out that my sister is actually my mother. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. I'm a 17-year-old male and I just found out that my sister, who's 35, is actually my mother. My sister wasn't around much when I was growing up because she was in college and then medical school. She'd visit on holidays and the weekends if she wasn't busy. Whenever she'd visit, she would spend a lot of time with me and she'd take me places and buy me things and give me advice when I needed it. I always felt like I could tell her anything and she wouldn't judge me for it. She really never got along with our parents and I never knew what it was about, but they would argue often and there was always a lot of tension around them. My parents were very loving and we get along, so no issues there. When she started dating her now husband, she spent less time with me and she would come over less often. 5 years ago, she got married to the guy. I don't like him at all. He's an overgrown frat guy and he's always teasing me or saying dumb stuff. He can never read the room. I've spoken to my sister about it, but she says that it's his way of bonding with people and that he means well and is a nice guy. He's been a pain in the butt for 5 years, and just when I was going to give him a chance, he messed it up. My sister and her husband came over 2 nights ago and were going to sleep over because they live 2 hours away. He took that as an opportunity to drink as much as he wanted. He's already insufferable while sober, so seeing him sloshed is even worse. My sister and I were catching up because it's been a while, and I was telling her how I would like to go into the medical field like her. Dumb husband then comes in and says that it's great that I want to follow in my mom's footsteps. My mom has never worked in the medical field, so I was confused and thought he was just being dumb, but my sister's face went so pale and my parents were very quiet. I just looked at my sister and could tell that it wasn't just a dumb comment. I locked myself in my room and didn't come out until the next day. There was a lot of yelling and I just learned something huge, so I didn't want to deal with it. When I finally decided to leave the room, I saw that my sister was sitting right outside the door and that jerk was gone. I asked her what was going on and told her not to lie to me or I will never speak to her again. She told me that she got pregnant in her senior year of high school and the guy cut all contact with her. She wanted to keep me and our parents were fully supportive of her. She found out that she got into her dream school, but she would have to either give up the school or give me up. She couldn't choose, so she decided to keep both. She spoke to our parents about it and the plan was to have them take care of me while she's in school, and when she can, she will take me back. I was supposed to grow up knowing that she is my mom, but because she was so busy and stressed out, she didn't think that she could handle motherhood. Our parents noticed that she was pulling away, so they adopted me and raised me as theirs. She said that she was young and dumb at the time, so she agreed with the adoption. She said she thought of dropping out and taking me back so many times, but thought I was better off without her as a mom. As the years went by, she saw less and less of a reason to tell me since I was doing good and being well taken care of. She started crying and telling me that she regrets her decision and wants to be my mom, even though I'm almost an adult, and she wants us to start over as mother and son. I told her I'd think about it, and then she left. I went to speak to my parents. They told me that they did everything for me because they love me, and I'm not obligated to leave now that I know. They said that things don't have to change if I don't want them to. It seemed more like they didn't want things to change. I feel like my whole life is a lie. I know that I was well taken care of, and I don't want to seem ungrateful, but I was lied to my whole life. I don't see myself calling my sister mom and living life as if everything is okay. My parents are the one who raised me, so how could I just leave them like that? On the other hand, if I don't decide to go with my sister, she might feel like I'm rejecting her or that I hate her, and after 17 years, she might really give up on me. I'm so torn and feel betrayed. I can't believe that I found out from that jerk. That makes me even more mad. I feel like I have to pick a side, and I don't know how to do that. I kind of just want to run away and forget about all of this. Everyone is kind of just leaving it up to me, and I don't even know what I want for breakfast on a good day. How do I approach this without everyone getting hurt? Jumping into the future, there is an update. My sister said that she is going to make more of an effort to be in my life. I think therapy might be good for us. As for the jerk husband, my sister really wants us to get along, but I don't see that happening. Maybe he should come to therapy a few times, but only if he's serious about it. She is very mad about him, but she wants to work things out with him. Also, it was really interesting reading stories from people who have experienced something similar or know someone who did. It's crazy how often and common these things are. I guess until you experience something for yourself, it can seem unbelievable. It was inspiring to read some of them, and some of them were just heartbreaking and made me realize I shouldn't let my anger make the decisions because life is short. My parents aren't getting any younger. I wouldn't want my last moments with them to be something so negative. They still have to earn my trust, but I don't see why we can't be on at least okay terms while they do. They've been extremely apologetic since, but actions speak louder than words, so we'll see. Another issue that rose is the fact that I don't know where the other half of me came from. My biological father basically disappeared from my sister's life. I don't know if I should even bring it up because no one else has yet. That will be another topic of discussion for therapy, I guess. So, where do I go from here? What should I do? This situation makes me wonder what would happen if the husband never said anything at all. Would another 5 years go by, 10 years go by, 15 years go by, and the OP still wouldn't know that his sister is his mom? It sounded like she had pretty much come to the decision that she wasn't going to tell him. Maybe she was just going to save it for when she was on her deathbed, or not at all. But now that the OP knows, his sister, mom, has to act on this now for better or for worse. I think most people's worlds would be completely flipped upside down if they found out that their sister was actually their mom. But let me know how this would affect you if this is what you found out about yourself and your family. Do you think it would be a big deal or not at all? Let me know down below. My own manager didn't recognize me at work. I used to work part-time at this fancy clothes store around the corner of my university, and one day we had a staff meeting scheduled after the store closed. I wasn't working that day, and since it started like a half an hour after I finished class and I didn't have time to go home and change, I came straight from university. I studied music and my regular style at the time was very different to what I wore for work. We had to wear natural makeup in the store's clothing. On this particular day, I was wearing black denim shorts over ripped black tights and black platform combat boots with a black singlet and a blue flannel shirt tied around my waist. I also had black eyeshadow, black lipstick, and electric blue eyeliner on. None of my coworkers had ever seen me outside of work, so when I walked up just as the store was closing, my manager came up to me and told me that I would have to leave because the register was already closed. I didn't quite know what to say, so I just stared at her for a second and then said, you don't recognize me, do you? As soon as I spoke, she realized who I was, much to the surprise of both her and my coworkers. This whole thing was made funnier by the fact that she used to regularly text or call me last minute if they were short-staffed, asking if I could come in for an hour or two to cover breaks since she knew that I was always just around around the corner. I pretty much always said no unless I had something else on after university that I was already dressed fancy for, and seeing me in my regular clothing made her realize why. She rarely asked again after that. For a little more information, this was a pretty small store. There were only 10 or so employees, and I had been working there for about 5 months, the second longest out of all of us at the time. So my manager definitely knew who I was. Even for people that don't really dress very differently than they do at work or don't wear a bunch of extra makeup, it still kind of throws you off when you see someone you work with somewhere else that is not work. You become so used to seeing that person in that very specific context, it's like your brain has a hard time of seeing them in any other context, at least at first. Let me know down below if you've ever experienced this yourself. Today I messed up by telling a dude that we've been watching him for years. Strap in everyone and come revel in my awkwardness. So for literally years now, this dude has been running around on a 3 square mile zone in my area. The only reason I've ever noticed him was because of his flowing hair that gracefully blows behind him as he runs and the frequency that we saw him out. When he started, he was a little overweight, but the dude is so committed that he literally runs in rainstorms wearing trash bags and is very fit now. So my family and I are watching this guy's transformation happen, which is kind of exciting to me because I'm into fitness. Over the years, I would cheer him on privately while inside my car. I would be like, "Yes, you got this, my dude," in an attempt to make my kids laugh. It became a thing. It was, "There's my dude," or "Man, I haven't seen my dude in a while. I hope he's okay." Or my sister would say, "I saw my dude today." Kind of just as an inside joke, but again, this is for years and years. Even after seeing him all the time while driving, I never actually ran into him in person while on my walks. That brings me to the "today I messed up" portion of the post. I decided to go a different route recently. I look up and through the sunlight in the trees, I see a glorious golden mane of hair, and I think, holy smokes, today's the day that I meet my dude. He's getting closer now. I feel incredibly stupid. Why did this "my dude" thing even start again? He's closer now. He's much taller than I thought, and that throws me off, and I just let him jog past. I think, no, I can't just not say anything, right? And guys, I really wish I didn't say anything. I really wish I went home and called my sister and fake fangirled over walking within inches of this mythical man with the hair, but I am an idiot. So I turn around and yell, "Excuse me!" And he swishes his marvelous hair around, still jogging in place, and just looks at me. I say, "We've been watching you for years!" And he goes, "Huh?" And I again say, "We've been watching you!" Like he couldn't hear me or something, instead of what he really meant, which is probably, "What the heck?" And he's still jogging, like, "What?" I stammer, "We've been watching you run. I mean, me and my family. Watching you run for years. You look great. Way to go, dude." And you guys, I gave him a thumbs up, like a weird Xanaxed up soccer mom. He says, "Oh, cool, thanks," and just kind of runs away. At this point, I feel kind of betrayed. Like he's basically a celebrity in my house and he just says, "Cool? How dare he?" Then it hit me. How awkward and creepy and messed up what I said and how I said what I said. I tell my husband and he's like, "Well, I wish you weren't so awkward, bud." I tell my kids and they are like, wow, mom. I tell my sister and she cries laughing because of how typical this is of me. To be so awkward, I mean. Like I literally told a grandma, "Don't eat the baby" the other day while at the store while she was nibbling on her grandkid's toes playfully. Like, what is my problem? Anyway, the main reason I'm even typing this, besides so you freaks that like to cringe at others' idiocy can read it, is that I appear to be some weird version of CIA/FBI/Illuminati/soccer mom to my dude. And since then, he's been nowhere to be found. I have not seen him running around at all, and I feel so bad that I may have, possibly, kind of weirded him out enough for him to change the entire area where he's been running for years, which is awful. So, my dude, if you see this, I am so not watching you in any other way other than to admire your hair and admire your dedication to fitness. I apologize profusely, and if I ever see you again, I promise I won't say anything. And to that grandma, if you see this, seriously, you shouldn't eat babies. I'm not apologizing for that though. Jumping into the future, there is an update. Today I told my mom about my previous post and I made her read it and I made her almost cease to exist from laughing so hard. And then she says, yeah, but the guy is pretty weird. And I say, why do you say that? And apparently I am from a family of freakishly awkward individuals. You guys, my dad did the same thing as me and he just forgot to tell my sister or me about it. Thanks, Dad, you're great. So he runs into my dad at the store and he was like, oh, hey, I see you running all the time. You're looking great. Keep it up. My dad was a coach, so he's got the weird proud dad thing going on. My dude just kind of looks at him and says, thanks, and slowly backs away. The end. Just kidding. Then my mom proceeds to tell me that she saw my dude running. Please read the following in a stereotypical mom voice.
Oh my gosh, I saw him running the other day. His shoes look so bad, I almost stopped. I wish I knew his shoe size so I can get him new shoes. Should I stop and ask him?
Holy smokes. Don't worry, I said don't do that, Mom. Please. Figure it out. So now that I know I wasn't the first person to tell him that I've been watching him, I feel really bad. My family, ladies and gentlemen. Jumping into the future, there is another update. I've been paying more attention than normal to the sidewalk while I'm driving in hopes of seeing that I hadn't completely obliterated my dude's ability to feel comfortable running on his route. I'm daydreaming about what I will do when I see him. Will I wave? Will I honk? Will I yell, "How are you now?" into the wind as I drive, gently blowing his hair as I pass? And holy smokes, what if I am walking when I see him next? Will my common sense just leak out of my ears completely? And will I, oh my god, pull out my phone, open this post and grin at him? Will I then awkwardly offer to give him half of my internet gold? Will I make a joke about karma? Probably. I hope not, but probably. So tonight, my mom read my post out loud to my dad while I was on the phone with them. In case you were wondering, he also wishes I wasn't so awkward, bud. But it's also kind of his fault if you think about it. Guys, I know what you're thinking, and don't worry, she successfully censored my curse words until about halfway through when she was having trouble breathing through laughter. Even then, she swore quietly, bless her heart. Basically, she thinks I'm famous now and that I'm going to be on Good Morning America, but like on a slow news day, not like on a good news day. Her words. She's a total mom. After she's done, I'm telling them some of your comments about making shirts and all of your ideas about how to get my dude's shoe size so that my mom, again, bless her heart, can buy him shoes. Anything from using light sprinklings of salt on the pavement to forcing him to run through plaster of Paris were thrown out there. Y'all are a bunch of snipers. Suddenly, my dad says, oh, by the way, I have seen him running recently. He's okay. And guys, in this moment, I am so relieved that I didn't mess up this dude's entire world. I say, oh, good. Where was he when you saw him? Same route? Oh, outside of his house. Wait, you know where he lives? Yeah, that one house on that one street that is not in our neighborhood but on a crossroad. I see him leave to run and I see him get back home sometimes when I'm driving. Look at me. I'm OP's dad and this totally isn't a big deal at all. Shut up, Dad. It totally is. Holy smokes, I say. My sister says, you just made it worse. My mom is basically dead at this moment. Mom, you cannot buy him shoes and drop them off at his house. She says, yeah, that would be awkward. So good news, he's still running. Bad news, we might actually be stalkers now. Final update, my dad just called to tell me he saw my dude. He was walking and wearing a hat. We've never seen him in a hat before, so my dad thinks it's my fault for posting about his luscious locks. His words, not mine. I hope he's wrong. So, what should we do? Seeing this all from the perspective of the OP and her family is pretty funny. It's a funny interpretation of the situation because they're seeing it from their perspective, but I can't even imagine what this guy must think when he's running around this neighborhood and 3 people in this family tell him in incomplete, seemingly cryptic ways that he is being watched and he has been watched for some time. You can tell a lot about what somebody's trying to say via their tone, but not if you actually think that they are unhinged or they're a psychopath or something. They could be smiling like the Joker and still be saying things that are scary sounding or dangerous sounding. And obviously it must have made some sort of impact because he changed his route. He changed the fact that he's wearing a hat and he's walking instead of running. Obviously the OP and her family only have good intentions, but the question is, what does he think their intentions are? So if you were this guy in this situation, how would you interpret all of this? Let me know down below. Am I the jerk for telling another gym member to wear a bra? I'm a 25-year-old female and I hate wearing bras. They're uncomfortable, constricting, and expensive. With work from home, I spent the last year and a half basically never wearing a bra and got used to it. Quite frankly, my honkers are non-existent anyway. I recently started going to the gym again and started working out braless jealous. I should note that up until now, no one has ever pointed out anything wrong with me not wearing a bra. However, in the middle of a set of squats, yes, mid-squat, a guy comes up to me, taps me on the shoulder to get my attention, and tells me that my nips are poking through my shirt. I get really irritated because why is this guy staring at my nips in the first place and then stopping me mid-set to inform me? I get really annoyed, try to finish my set, but then this jerk literally grabs the bar as I ascend and re-racks it for me. He claimed to look like I was having trouble with the last rep and that he had to come over to make sure I could do it, then noticed my nips. I'm really pissed off at this point and I told him I didn't need his help finishing my set, and why was he looking at my chest in the first place? He said he was going to spot me but then noticed my chest and thought it would be inappropriate. I pointed out that the safety bar was set, so even if I did fail the set, he wasn't needed, but he just insisted that people at gyms look out for each other and that going forward, I should probably wear a bra so that other people wouldn't get uncomfortable and that it may help me stay more balanced in my squats. I'm literally the only girl at the weight section of the gym at the moment. The other guys who were squatting and failed sets never had to worry about any of this. I've seen guys fail multiple sets in a row and no one ever rushes to their aid. But I have a very slight pause and everyone thinks I need rescuing. So now I'm really annoyed and also kind of uncomfortable that this guy I've never spoken to in my life thinks that he's helping me and then has the audacity to tell me how to dress. So I tell him, you have bigger honkers than I do. Maybe you should wear the bra so people don't get uncomfortable and you won't fail your squats. He then got really defensive, saying that he was just trying to help and then called me a B. Honestly, I'm not sure if I overreacted. I'm still kind of pissed off, so maybe that's clouding my judgment. For more information, I'm not sure if people think I'm actually walking around and it's extremely obvious that my nips are showing. I actually really hate constricting clothes. My t-shirt size is an extra small, but I wear size large to the gym and pretty much everywhere lately. And you can't tell my stomach from my chest. It might have been showing a little bit more while I'm squatting because I was wearing with a lift belt. So am I the jerk? But before you decide, there is an update. I finally did start wearing bras again, and not at all because of this incident, but because I'd been dealing with depression that made me not really try to get dressed in general, not just at the gym. And dressing for success has been a small way to try and get myself back into a better place mentally. Anyway, the guy goes to the gym roughly at the same time I do now most days, so unfortunately, I did have to see him again. Even though I really wanted to grab his bar out of fake concern while he was squatting, I mostly ignored him until 2 days ago. I was deadlifting and recording myself to check my form. The guy comes over and says something like, "You know sumo is cheating, right?" I get this comment a lot, mostly from men half joking, and it's annoying, but I just completely ignore him. He repeats it a little bit louder. "You know sumo is cheating, right?" And I continue to ignore him. I guess he sees that I was recording myself because then he asks if I have an Instagram. I don't post my lifts on Instagram, and then he asks if he could follow me. I keep ignoring him. Finally, he says something like, "See, your form is so much better now that you're wearing a bra." And I lost it again. I screamed at him that he is a disgusting, harassing piece of trash. Honestly, I don't remember exactly what I said, but it was admittedly very vulgar and got a lot of attention. A worker came over and asked if something was wrong. I said that the guy was harassing me for 2 weeks and asked to speak to a manager. The guy denied it and said that he was just trying to help and that I was being sensitive. But either way, the manager asked what was going on and got both of our stories. Because I had been recording my lifts, I actually had a video of him where he commented on my bra. So the manager gave him a 30-day ban and told me that if he ever bothered me again to let her know and she would permanently ban him. So I feel kind of vindicated, but I also feel a little frustrated that just one man actually saw consequences for this kind of behavior towards women in the gym. It's nice to see someone have repercussions for their actions, but it's also exhausting dealing with this kind of thing constantly at the gym, even if it isn't quite as overt. But I guess I'll have to keep calm and lift on. So, was I overreacting? Am I the jerk? To start this off, how on earth would a bra help you stay balanced? Is that a reference to something else that he just didn't fully explain, or is that actually his thought, that a bra is going to keep you balanced while you're doing squats? What? One of the responses mentioned this and said, yes, obviously. Didn't you know that in the thousands of years before bras existed, us silly women kept falling over, especially when doing hard manual labor? Luckily, we have heroes such as this gym bro to prevent us, contrarian women, from hurting ourselves with our own ignorance. Thank you, helpful man. I really needed your help in order to be balanced and stand upright. Now I know what I've been doing wrong all these years. And probably part of the most strange part of the guy's reasoning in his mind was the last time they interacted, they had a very bad interaction. He called her a B, and she told him him that his honkers are bigger than hers and that he should wear a bra so that people won't get uncomfortable and he won't fail his squats. But somehow magically he just forgot all of that and tried to start up a conversation again. And in the vein of, hey, I told you so. I knew that you were going to be more balanced once you did what I said. But the final piece to it all is that she kept ignoring him sentence by sentence until he mentioned her wearing a bra again. But in that section where she was ignoring him, he actually asked for her Instagram, which maybe he really was just so oblivious to the whole situation. He thought that they were flirting and it wasn't a situation of just him harassing her. So let me know how you guys see this situation down below. Have you ever experienced something like this yourself? And jerk or not a jerk, and why? When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories in this series, use the playlist at the top of the description. And next time you live stream, use the cream of the crop music. Search for Cream of the Stream on Spotify or whatever music platform you use for copyright-free music to use for your stream. It's free. Cream of the Stream. Either way, thanks a lot for listening. I'll see you guys next time. Karen tries to force me to serve her, but I don't work there, so I let her have it. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. I finally got to tell a customer what we'd all been thinking. A while back, I was a server / bartender at an upscale restaurant and was dating another bartender and was good friends with two of the managers. The owner was a pompous jerk, but had 2 locations, so he was almost never at my location. The other one was in a trendy part of town, so of course he had to be seen there. We had this one lady who loved to come to the bar. She would tell anyone and everyone working that she was friends with the owner. It was actually true, and use that to treat everyone like crap, snapping her fingers, calling out,
"Hey, I need another drink."
all while bragging about the car she drove, the presents that her boyfriend would give her. And since she actually was friends with the owner, we just took it. We knew she would get most if not all of her tab comped and not tipped, so we just shuddered when she walked in. She had 2 steady boyfriends and a third that seemed to rotate. She was good looking if you like fake parts. We called her the entitled C. When she was with a boyfriend, she was only a bit horrible, but when she was alone, she would get really sloshed and piss off other patrons or hit on the older men to the point that they would leave, affecting your tips all night. It's one thing if I know it's just one tab I'm losing out on. It's another thing entirely when you affect my whole night. Fast forward about 8 months. I left the job to go back to school full time, but my girlfriend is still bartending there, and I would frequently go in to have a meal on the cheap and a free brewski or 2. One of these nights, she shows up. The lady snapping at my girlfriend says,
"I need another Chardonnay, quick!"
My girlfriend, who is taking another customer's food order, says, "I'll be right there in a minute." The lady, looking at me, says,
You work here. Get me a drink."
I just keep watching the game on TV and eating my dinner, and I ignore her. The lady gets in my face and says,
I was talking to you. Get me my drink."
"Ma'am, I don't work here anymore."
"Yes, you do. I see you working here all the time. Get me my drink. Don't you know who I am? I know the owner."
I look at my girlfriend and give her a little smirk as if to say, "May I?" and she nods back. I didn't want to get her in trouble, but the friendly manager was working that night and the owner was nowhere to be found. The stars had aligned. I told her, "I don't work here, and since I don't, let me tell you what everyone who does work here thinks of you. You are the single most obnoxious guest that walks through these doors. We call you the entitled C behind your back. You're a drunk, a gold digger, and a fake from head to toe. We count down the minutes until you leave." I turn to the boyfriend that's with her that night and tell him, "You know she has at least 2 other boyfriends, right?" Apparently, no one has ever talked to her like this before, and her jaw is on the floor. You can see the hamster wheel spinning in her tiny brain, and knowing what a crap show I have started, I sit back, take a long drink of my brewski, and prepare to get reamed out. But before she can start, her boyfriend goes, "What?" Apparently, he did not know about the other boyfriends. So what I thought was going to be a rant-filled chew-out coming my way turned completely 180 on her. He starts going off on her, and the restaurant is dead silent, listening to him ream her out. How could she be sleeping around after all he has done for her? Cars, condos, presents. After all that, she was messing around on him. He storms out and she runs after him. That was one of the sweetest drinks of my life. Here's the after story. Of course, this lady called the owner and complained about me, but he confirmed I no longer work there. My girlfriend got written up for allowing me to talk like that, but she never came back to that location. I was banned by the owner, but since he rarely was in, I got to hang out with my girlfriend and manager friend. For those asking, this was about 8 years ago. After the incident, the horrible lady just started going to the other location. Since then, the owner's restaurants have shuttered because he was a horrible owner. My girlfriend and I broke up amicably, and she went on to run a restaurant with a James Beard awarded chef. The nice manager opened up his own place and is doing very well. So was I the jerk for finally telling a customer what we'd been thinking all along? This is one of those moments that people probably fantasize about all the time when they're working at a job and have to deal with a customer that they absolutely detest. Someone that everyone knows that they are a jerk, but the actual person themselves don't have the decency or self-awareness to realize how awful they really are being. And since nobody's ever called them out on it, since no one's ever challenged them, they continue just acting this way because they think they can. They think it's normal to act like that. But this situation is a rare case where the original poster was actually able to say what was building up this entire time and not risk his job because he didn't work there anymore. He didn't even have a job there anymore. Usually every opportunity there is to say something like this to someone, you have to bite your tongue because you're at work. And maybe that's what she was counting on, that he would continue to bite his tongue because she really did believe that he still worked there. So let me know if you've ever worked a job and wanted to say something like this to somebody that came into your job down below. And feel free to submit your stories via the link in the description. My fiance's ex sent me their personal videotapes and I made the terrible mistake of watching them. I'm a 29-year-old female, my fiance, who's a 27-year-old male, and I just got engaged a week ago. I proposed to him when I heard from our friends that he was sad his proposal plans were ruined by COVID. We have been very happy this past week. I guess this caught the attention of his bitter ex, who's a 28-year-old female. She contacted me on social media and sent me a few videos and said that even though I may be marrying him, I would never be able to satisfy him the way that she did. For some background, early on in our relationship, I was a bit insecure about this ex, especially how attractive she was, but my fiance assured me that he would never ever consider being with her again because she was abusive and used to force him into doing things that he did not like. I soon grew out of these insecurities because my fiance was an amazing boyfriend and always made me feel loved and very secure. But the ex's messages brought back all these insecurities and I decided that I would watch the video she sent. It was a huge mistake. I have never seen my fiance so passionate or vocal. She even had a video of them in a public place. I never knew that he was into all of this stuff. I got really upset and decided to check if he had kept any of these videos on his phone. It turns out he hadn't kept any of them, but I found out messages discussing them with his best friend Sarah. Apparently his ex had sent these tapes to him as well to remind him of how good it was between them. He had deleted them right away and blocked her, but was debating whether or not to tell me about this and thus asked Sarah's advice. The conversation somehow turned into Sarah asking who was better. My fiance tried to evade the question, but she pressed the issue for some reason. It looked like she was teasing him and being playful, but after a while he got mad and sent her a mini rant. The important gist from it was basically this. He said, if you look at it from a purely physical perspective, then yeah, X was better. She was more my type physically. She was very aggressive and passionate and almost always took the initiative, which I liked. But she was also abusive and towards the end she started using it as a tool. Instead of feeling loved, it became a desperate attempt for me to connect with her. Doing it with OP has made me realize that doing it was not just about the physical aspect. I feel loved and secure and happy when I am with her. Even if she is less my type compared to my ex, the emotional connection means that the deed itself is automatically great. Although the second half of this rant somehow saves it, I still feel really hurt by his admission that doing it was better with her. He did tell me that he liked me being aggressive and taking initiative, and I do try to be more like that, but once things start happening, I end up becoming more passive and let him take the lead. I know I could try being more aggressive, but I am afraid that I can never be as good as her, and I can never be the kind of girl that does things in public. Now I wonder if he settled for me despite not enjoying it as much with me. Logically, I know I don't have to be the best at everything for my fiance, but it hurts because he is the best boyfriend I've ever had in all aspects I can think of, and I always thought that our private life was amazing. Now I feel like I just got lucky because I was the first person he dated that after that abusive situation, the bar was set so low that he decided that our relationship was amazing enough to make up for that. I wasn't as good at it as she was. I feel sad and hurt and I don't know what to do. The ex managed to ruin what was supposed to be one of the happiest periods of my life. I don't know how to bring this up to my fiance without sounding like a nut with no self-control who thought it was a good idea to watch the videos and snoop on his phone. Jumping into the future, there is an update. After posting here and reading the advice and reflecting on my actions, I realized what I did was wrong and a violation of my fiance's privacy. I allowed my insecurities to dictate my actions. Even though my fiance is okay with me using his phone, my intent to snoop made what I did wrong. So I decided to just come clean. I sat him down the next day and told him that the ex sent me the videos as well, and also came clean about the snooping. He was pretty upset, but surprisingly, he wasn't that upset with the snooping. He seemed more upset that his ex had somehow managed to cause drama once again in his life. He told me that he hadn't watched any of the videos because in a majority of them, he was uncomfortable with recording them and only did it for her and was afraid if watching it made me look at him in a bad way. This made me feel even worse for what I did, and I apologized again and reassured him that they did not in any way lessen my feelings or respect for him. I wanted him to have some time to process things and decide what to do about the ex and what I did, so I gave him some space. That night, I decided to cook his favorite meal as sort of an apology dinner and discuss things. He seemed in a much better mood. He apologized to me for not telling me about the tapes right away and for being an idiot and not realizing that she would come after me when he had blocked her. He told me he appreciated me coming clean about the snooping and understood how I got carried away and that I could have just talked to him and he would have given me his phone and reassured me that he hadn't kept any of the videos. I asked if he was going to press charges regarding the revenge pee, and he told me that he wanted nothing to do with her and that we should just move on and enjoy our engagement and forget the whole thing. I told him it was completely his choice and I support him and would delete the videos and block her right away. Finally, I brought up the text and he apologized to me for the rant. He told me that was the first time in a long time that he actually thought about who was better and that he never actively compared me with any of his exes before. He told me he should have just answered with a simple "my fiance is better" and tried to apologize again. I told him that he didn't have to sugarcoat anything and that it was his private conversation with a friend and I have no right to be mad when he wasn't really disrespectful about me or our private life. I told him that it was okay if she was better and I didn't have to be the best at everything. He explained to me that after talking to Sarah, he thought more about it and that he hadn't really expressed his thoughts well in the text, but he would like to explain it better. He said, "You are the best I've ever had. I am not lying or sugarcoating anything. If someone asked me who is the most skilled or who is the most adventurous partner I've ever had, then yeah, it would probably be her. But that doesn't really matter because if someone had asked me what was the best I have ever had, my first thought would be the time when we did it right after you asked me to marry you. And then it would be the night when you first told me you love me. And third would be the time we did it the day I moved in." For all of her skill and experience, she couldn't even make the top 3. And we have the rest of our lives to make sure that she doesn't even come near the top 100. So no, I am not lying when I say you are the best I've ever had. I'm not gonna lie, despite what I said about not needing to be the best, just hearing what he said, maybe I butchered the quote, he was so much more charming and eloquent, made me really happy. So I kissed him and asked him if he wanted to try to break into the top 3 again. I didn't really specifically try to be more aggressive, but I tried to focus more on what he was feeling to reassure myself that he was enjoying it as much as I did. That naturally allowed me to be the one in the lead, and it was great. I could tell that he really enjoyed it as well. I know I have to work on my insecurities and potentially see a therapist, but for now I will try my best just to forget what I saw in those videos and enjoy being engaged to the most amazing man that I know. So, am I the jerk? What the ex did in the situation sounds pretty illegal. I'm sure some of you guys probably know the laws a lot better than I do when it comes to something like this, but there's no way that that can be okay. And I'm assuming that is the case, as the OP directly asks him, do you want to press charges for what she did? And even if it wasn't illegal, how could you do something so violating to another person as to share something like that? The ex in the situation is using it like a weapon. People that do stuff like that, use something like this as a weapon, are the lowest of the low. I just can't even possibly conceive of how she would think that that would suddenly make the guy like her again. How does she imagine it happening? She would send him the videos, he would see them, and then he would suddenly go, "Oh, I remember how much I like her now. This reminds me of good times." And not instead think, this is a scary and vindictive action she just took, and she's gonna probably keep coming after me and the people I care about. So how do you think you would handle a situation like this? Would you press charges or would you do something else? Let me know down below. An entitled mother is furious about Pokemon Go. So the other night I decided to go to a local lake and walk around to play some Pokemon Go. There are dozens of Pokestops around the lake and quite a few gyms too, so it's a prime location to play. Also, I'm 22 and I went with a friend who's 28. It was a quiet night, not a whole lot of people walking around. We approach a park and shelter area and notice there's a raid about to start. So we sit at the shelter area to play it. I'm not sure how to explain this if you're unfamiliar with Pokemon Go. We happened to be the only people there, and across the trail was a park with a few kids and a mom barely paying attention. We're sitting there waiting for the raid to start for about 5 minutes when this mom comes over to us.
Can I ask you what you're doing here?
We're playing Pokemon Go, why?
Well, it's pretty creepy that 2 adults are just sitting sitting here in the park. You need to leave.
What? We're minding our own business. Maybe you should too.
You are making me and my children uncomfortable. I don't know what Pokemon Go is, but it sounds like an excuse to watch my kids.
Well, we'll only be here for like 10 more minutes, lady. We aren't watching your kids.
Ridiculous.
She then storms back over to the park and sits on the phone with someone. About 3 minutes later, she grabs her kids and comes over again, yelling at us that now her kids can't enjoy the park because us creeps want to kidnap them. She also explained to her children, who both look to be younger than 10, that they had to leave because we were going to hurt them. I was baffled and didn't even know what to say. It's a public trail, a public park, and a public shelter. And on a lot of days, there are dozens of adults playing Pokemon Go. It was so strange. So, was I the jerk? It is a strange conclusion to come to that these two guys are going to do anything besides stare at their phones, because when they're playing in this raid, they're going to be pretty focused on the phone and not anything else around them. I get that Pokemon Go, especially at the time, was kind of a novel concept and a lot of people didn't understand how it worked if they weren't playing it themselves. But even if there was no game involved, these two guys are just minding their own business. So let me know if you've ever been in a situation like this down below, and don't forget you can submit your own stories via the link in the description. An entitled mother leaves her kids 6 train carriages away while she tries to steal our seats. So myself and my girlfriend were coming back from Paris after my brother's wedding. We got the Eurostar both ways, but on the way there we went standard class. My girlfriend and I were paying for the return and thought that we'd go for it by upgrading to standard premier, which was slightly more expensive than normal standard, but we don't go to Paris very often. There was a third option, business premier, but we're not made of money. The main differences between standard and standard premier are that with standard it's pretty cramped, and with standard premier you get extra legroom. With regular standard you have to go and buy food on board, but with standard premier you get food and drinks at your seat. The different options are divided into different carriages. The standard carriages are 1 through 5, premier is 7 through 12, and 14 through 18 are also standard. My girlfriend and I get onto the train. Our seats are in a carriage towards the middle, and we're in one of the rows nearest the door. We get settled into our seats, ready to leave, when the entitled mother approaches, all paraphrasing. The entitled mother seemed nice at first, but it didn't last.
Excuse me?
Yes?
I'm terribly sorry to ask you this. I hope you don't mind.
My girlfriend says, yes?
Well, my daughter and I are traveling, but we've got put a bit far back. She's got a bad leg and we need to be a bit closer to the doors. We can't be getting up to get food and drink.
My girlfriend says, oh, poor her. I broke my leg a couple years back and that was awful. Had to have crutches and everything. How old is she?
Oh, she's 8. She's really in a bad way, but she's such a trooper. It would be just so much easier if we were just a bit further forward.
Where are you sat?
Oh, just a little further back.
She gestures vaguely behind us and I get suspicious at this point. I say, yeah, but where specifically? What carriage number?
I think it was 3.
Now, we're in coach 10. This is a significant distance. Additionally, coach 3 is standard seating only. So I ask her, isn't 3 standard class?
Well, yes, but my daughter needs these seats.
My girlfriend, catching on to the entitled mother's plan, says, look, we're not unsympathetic, but we sort of paid extra for these seats. And I said, also, where is your kid?
I am going back for her once I've sorted these seats. So I can tell her it's sorted now, right?
We've not agreed to anything. Isn't coach 3 closer to the front than 10? If it's about proximity, wouldn't you be better off in coach 2?
No, she needs the legroom too. And she can't keep getting up to help. You look like you can afford it.
I tell her, not really. We're only splashing out this once as it was my brother's wedding. The entitled mother starts huffing and says,
look, are you going to give me the seats or not?
My girlfriend, in this overly sweet voice she does that usually indicates she's on her last nerve with someone, says, it sounds like you're actually further up than we are. If legroom is an issue, then I'm sure we can speak to someone. I'm pretty sure your coach has priority boarding. I'll help you find someone, sort something out. It's really no trouble at all. My girlfriend gets up and leads the entitled mother back to her coach, with the entitled mother grumbling the whole time. My girlfriend comes back about 5 minutes later and tells me that the daughter, who is not at all entitled, is also totally fine and in no way has a bad leg. Apparently, the daughter straight up ran to the entitled mother and my girlfriend when they came back in their carriage. And my girlfriend said that the kid was way too young to be left on her own, and they were actually pretty close to the front of the train. But nothing else happened after that. No stopping, calling the police, assault of any kind. The entitled mother just went back to her seat, but my girlfriend and I thought we saw her walk through the carriage before ours a little while later and speak to someone in there. So maybe she was trying again with someone else. So was I the jerk for not just giving it to her? So basically, the entitled mother here was trying to run this little scam using her daughter as the reason. I'm guessing this has probably actually worked out in the past, which is why she's still doing it and going across that many carriages. She started in carriage 3 and she's all the way in carriage 10. Granted, the first 5 are standard by default, so she probably skipped those ones, but that means she tried and failed in carriage 7, 8, and 9, and now she's in 10. So in other words, she was probably rejected a lot, but still somehow kept going because she believed somebody would eventually give in. And the whole time leaving her kid back in the original carriage, who obviously doesn't even care about switching seats. So if these were your seats, let me know how you would have handled the situation down below and jerk or not a jerk and why. An employee screams at a guy who turns out to be the CEO of the company and gets fired. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. This is actually a story from my mom from a couple years ago. She works for an energy company in customer service, taking phone calls, answering questions, and sometimes helping fix simple issues. It had started not too long ago and she was one of the first few employees, so right from the start she pretty much knew everyone who worked there, including the CEO, who she describes as a very nice, down-to-earth guy who'd always dress pretty casually so he'd blend in with everyone there pretty easily. After a couple of months, they started hiring more people to work there, including this one guy who was apparently very entitled and considered himself better than everyone. My mom and a few others didn't like him because he was apparently arrogant, always tried to correct others only to be wrong himself, kept making the same mistakes, ignored many of the rules on the floor, and had a huge temper and would scream and curse at anyone who said something that he didn't like. The screaming would 99.9% of the time be something along the lines of,
"Who the F do you think you're talking to?"
Insert whatever someone did or said here. Many complained about him, but the manager at the time was too nice or too scared or both to actually do something about him. One day he was apparently playing games on his phone while at the same time talking to a customer and telling them all kinds of random wrong things when the CEO of the company came to check the floor after a meeting. Seeing this guy, he walked up to him and calmly informed him that he wasn't allowed to have his phone out while helping a customer, so he could completely focus on said customer for the moment. Cue the guy literally throwing his headset off, jumping to his feet and screaming in the CEO's face, who he obviously didn't know was a CEO, and said,
"And who the F do you think you are to tell me how to do my effing job?"
along with stomping his foot at each syllable. The boss stood there for a moment, obviously in shock, and the guy, thinking he'd won, smirked all smug before the boss pulled a, well, I guess you could call it a boss move. Well, I just so happened to be the effing CEO of this effing company. He screamed back, even copying the foot stomping. The dumb guy lost the smirk and, according to my mom, went from angry to bright red to pure white in half a second. The boss calmly grabbed the headset, which apparently still had the customer on it who heard everything, and apologized for what she had heard and just asked her what she needed help with. Finished in a minute, and before hanging up, once again apologized and told her the other guy was fired, so it won't be happening again. As soon as he hung up, he just said to the guy he was serious and he'd better gather his stuff. At the end of the day, the annoying employee was gone and the manager got a talk on dealing with bad employees, and someone baked the boss a cake. This is one of those obvious instant karma type of moments. After you've done this for so long, yelling at people, "Do you know who I am?" and nobody ever corrects you, checks you, and your manager is afraid to reprimand you or even just say anything to you in general, of course a person like this is going to create this weird, overly inflated ego about who they are and think it's okay to throw their headset off while a customer is on the phone and curse at who he thought was just another employee at the company. Obviously, he was more than shocked when it was not just an employee, it was the CEO of the entire company. And clearly, it wasn't just the manager who was afraid of him or wanted him gone, because at the end of the day, they ended up baking the CEO a cake. As some some sort of sign of gratitude saying thank you for getting rid of this guy. So let me know if you guys have ever worked with somebody like this who basically just runs free and nobody's ever stopped him, and then eventually they get in trouble for something like this. Don't forget you can always submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel via the link in the description. I work here, I promise. I work in a home improvement store and typically work nights as a stalker, so I can see the confusion, but it's funny nonetheless. Night crew tends to have a more relaxed dress code. I was wearing a polo shirt and jeans. My manager called us in early because some holiday boxes had arrived unexpectedly. He told us to leave our aprons in our lockers so we would be less likely to be interrupted. I was still carrying an inventory device. A customer saw through this, however, and asked me to get something that they needed off the top of the overstock area. I was ahead in what I was doing, so I figured I would help them out. I grabbed the employees only ladder, and I'm about to go up when I hear yelling from below. It's what looked to be the front end manager. She tells me to come down and ask me what I am doing, and that customers are not allowed up there. I tell her I work there. I show her the phone with my employee credentials logged in, and we kind of just laugh and tell her my manager told me not to wear my apron. We still tease each other about it to this day. This makes me think of those prank videos where people go into a store and dress as an employee of that store, and people working there actually believe that they do work there because there are so many employees. How would they know if they did or didn't? But in this case, it's the exact opposite because this person works on the back of the store, so even a manager of the store doesn't recognize them. So let me know if you've ever been in a situation like this down below. Am I the jerk for walking out of a house after the host told me to feel free to leave because she doesn't like people in her house? Here's the backstory. I'm dating this guy and his best friend was having a small party, if you can call it that. There were 10 people there at most. I wasn't invited, but my boyfriend, for lack of a better term, told me it would be okay if I came. Usually I wouldn't go somewhere without an invite, but since this is his best friend's house, I assumed that he knew the situation better than me. I show up, go inside, meet the best friend, and she didn't know I was coming. My boyfriend says, "Hey, this is who I told you about. I wanted you guys to meet." The best friend turns to me with a straight face and says, "Yeah, it's alright I guess, but feel free to leave because I don't really like people in my house." So I left. I turned around and walked out without saying another word. Now, to be completely fair, my boyfriend was shocked. He came after me and said that he had no idea she would react that way, but she was just having a bad night and that we should go back and everything will be okay. Obviously, I left. He didn't come with me. But now he's texting me saying that while she was a bit rude, I was even more rude for just walking out in front of everyone, and that it made for a weird vibe with all of his other friends who were there. I should mention there is a language barrier here. She speaks Greek and Italian as her first languages, and I speak English, so honestly, her intent was questionable, but the look on her face gave me a weird vibe. And an interesting further question is, does the boyfriend have the right to invite someone into someone else's home? This is a tough one because sometimes yes and sometimes no. I've done this before if the vibe was right, but mostly I don't do it. I would just ask first. So I kind of understand if he thought it was a situation where it would be okay, but it turned out not to be okay. I'm conflicted. Am I the jerk? If the boyfriend didn't explicitly ask permission to bring the OP there when he specifically knows that his best friend doesn't like people in her house, then he is obviously the jerk because that doesn't seem like a character trait that would change over time. If you know that your friend hates having people over and you just randomly bring someone over without saying anything, especially someone they've never met before, that's not a cool thing to do. No asking for permission, no heads up, no anything. And if that is a situation, it's kind of hard to fault the friend for saying, please feel free to leave because I don't like people in my house. But on the flip side, if the boyfriend somehow did ask and she said yes, and then the friend was just rude like this for no reason, then obviously the friend here is the clear jerk. If I had to guess, I would say that it's probably more likely that the boyfriend was just assuming that it was okay to bring her over and didn't directly ask at all, despite knowing how the friend feels about it. Because otherwise, it's kind of hard to imagine somebody saying this the first time they ever meet somebody who they were expecting to have in their house. So let me know how you see this, a jerk or not a jerk, and why. Am I the jerk for causing drama during an important football game? I'm a 27-year-old female, and last weekend I ended feeling a wee bit poorly with what turned out to be appendicitis. We were away for the weekend with my partner, who's a 39-year-old male, so I had surgery at a hospital 3 to 4 hours away from home. I had a small complication during surgery, so I had to stay until Wednesday, yesterday. My partner returned to work on Monday, but he came back to pick me up. The timing was bad because there was an important football game yesterday, and it was really important for my partner to watch it. I'm not English, so I don't quite get the importance, but it's a big deal for him, and so important that I wanted to make sure he'd see the game. I suggested booking a room near the hospital so we wouldn't miss it due to the drive, but he wanted to see the game at a friend's place. He said he'd make it. While we were waiting to get me discharged, he was getting agitated because it was taking a long time. He had to wait outside, so he was in his car the whole time because of restrictions at the hospital. After a couple of hours, he sent me a text that he had to leave or he'd miss the game. I begged him not to leave and reminded him that I could book a hotel, but he left without me, and luckily made it on time to see the start of the game. He said he'd come pick pick me up tomorrow, which is now today instead. The hospital wouldn't let me stay another night or leave alone. Luckily, one of my friends came to get me in the end. She didn't get to the hospital until late and we got back to London around 2 a.m. The whole time I was trying to call and text my partner, but he only said that we could talk about it today. The whole evening I was texting and calling my partner, ever since the moment he left me at the hospital. He only sent me one WhatsApp back that said he'd pick me up later, but he wanted to see the game. When I got home in the night, he was so angry at me. He said I was the most selfish jerk for constantly ringing and texting him during the game, and that I ruined the game for him and embarrassed him in front of his friends. He says he can't even look at me and that I bring so much drama with me. It is humiliating. I feel at a complete loss. I think I might be the jerk for not understanding the cultural significance of football and asking my boyfriend to do a completely unreasonable drive to pick me up. But on the other hand, we could have watched the game in a hotel room and I wouldn't have been left alone in a hospital in another country. Am I the jerk? This is wild. He leaves her at the hospital and tells her he'll come back another day, and she can't even stay in the hospital or leave alone? It's hard to imagine anything being more important than helping a person that you claim to care the most about in a situation when they're the most vulnerable. She had to have surgery, there was a complication, and she needs help. She's not just being annoying for no reason, and she even set up the idea of an alternate plan where they would watch the game in a hotel room. So he drove all the way out there, she couldn't get out fast enough, and he just left the country to go watch a football game? A game, like many people pointed out, that he wasn't even playing in. He wanted to go watch other people play a game. Not only is this guy obviously the jerk, regardless of whatever cultural excuse he gives, but you should probably break up with him too. But let me know how you guys see the situation down below. Is there any possible scenario where you think he's not the jerk? If so, let me know how and why. Am I the jerk for stopping my elderly dad from putting on a Barry White voice to answer the phone? I'm a 50-year-old female and I live a fair way away from my dad, who's 86, and my younger sister lives closer. I therefore call him a lot between visits. Dad gets a lot of scammer calls and also marketing calls. Also bear in mind, dad is a bit deaf and won't put on his hearing aids to answer the phone, as sometimes they get in the way apparently. One time I rang up and the Welsh version of a deep Barry White voice answered the phone. I started panicking, yelling, "Dad, are you okay? Oh my God, Dad, you have COVID?" My dad said,
"Is that you, OP? Who is this?"
I said, "Dad, why is your voice like that? Are you ill?" Dad then goes on to explain he puts on an extra gravelly and deep voice to ward off scammers. I started freaking out and saying, "I thought you had COVID. Please don't put that voice on." Dad says he will stop. I ring my sister to moan about how scared I was that Dad was ill when he was just putting on a very deep voice for callers. My sister tells me that I'm the jerk for stopping my dad from putting on the Barry White voice, as it helped him psychologically to face scammers. I guess I am, but 1, it sounds very weird in a Welsh accent, and 2, he didn't warn me or my sister he was doing it. So am I the jerk? If you know he's not ill, and you've confirmed that, and you know that you can ask him anytime you want if he's ill or not and he'll give you an answer, then what is the problem with him using a Barry White voice to ward off scammers? If anything, for some people it's an even more pleasant phone call to hear a voice that they like. So it's hard to see the dad doing anything wrong in this situation at all. But let me know how you see this, jerk or not a jerk, and why. I defended my PhD yesterday and not one of my family or friends showed up, not even my fiance. I'll try to keep it brief. Yesterday I defended my PhD in a STEM field, which stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math, at a highly prestigious program. Unlike many departments, my department's defenses are basically celebrations. You present for 1 hour to anyone who wants to come, your PhD committee asks you a few questions, and then you drink champagne and celebrate. I created a Facebook event for it 3 weeks in advance. My immediate family and very closest of friends all said they would come. These included my best man as well as 2 people who were going to give toasts at the wedding. My fiance was going to take work off to come in as well. Then came yesterday. I knew 2 of my coworkers couldn't make it because they were out of the country, but I wasn't prepared for what happened. I presented to a nearly completely empty auditorium. Only my advisor, 2 committee members, and a few members of nearby labs showed. It was so incredibly embarrassing that I almost couldn't make it through my defense. After my defense, I looked at my phone and I only had one message from my mom saying my family wasn't going to make it on time because they left too late. I called my fiance twice with no answer. It wasn't until 10 p.m. last night that she called me back. It turned out that her best friend from college, who I've known to be quite selfish from previous situations, friends had tried to end it all because she found out that her boyfriend had cheated on her. She knew my defense was yesterday, but begged my fiance to visit her all day in the hospital. My fiance didn't even say congrats. No one else has called or texted to congratulate me since I defended yesterday. I barely held it together on my call with my fiance, but I'm now so upset that I'm considering calling off the wedding, taking a job, and never contacting any of these people again. I know I'm a horrible person for doing this, but my big day was completely ruined by their inconsiderate actions. I wanted to address a few responses suggesting that either A, this situation is reflective of me not going to their special events, or B, that my family and friends aren't obligated to show. A, yes, I have gone to and planned special functions for others. One of the friends who told me they would show up defended her PhD a few weeks ago, but from another group. I of course showed up to her defense. I also helped plan the happy hour afterwards. I also helped plan another invited friend's surprise birthday last year, which was huge because she turned 30. So while I understand why people might think that I'm expecting something while giving nothing to others, I just don't believe that is the case here. And B, of course my family and friends aren't obligated to show up. Had they said they couldn't come due to work, etc., I wouldn't be upset. Had they ignored me, I probably would have just interpreted it as a can't come and would still be okay. But my closest friends made it a point that they would be there, then didn't show. That's what got me upset. Jumping into the future, there is an update. This morning my fiance called me after I was more or less incommunicado all of yesterday. Because I had calmed down, we were able to have a rational discussion. It turns out there is a lot to the story that I was unaware of. She began the conversation with an apology. She explained that while she was in shock on Friday about her friend, she realized immediately after our call that she had completely ignored me and my defense all day. She knows me well and knew how upset and angry I was. She thought I had every right to be angry, but gave me a day to chill out. My fiance is now extremely pissed at her friend. Previously, I had implied that her friend was extremely selfish, not only due to previous actions, but also because she called my fiance and begged her to visit all day, even though she knew my defense was that day. Many criticized my feelings about this, and as of early this morning, I thought that I was wrong to feel the way that I did. I should have been a bit more sympathetic, but then my fiance told me what happened yesterday. For about 2 hours yesterday, my fiance visited her in the hospital again. Her friend was feeling a bit better, so my fiance began to ask her about the cheating boyfriend in a bit more detail. It turns out that her friend did not find out about her boyfriend cheating on Friday. She actually found out the Saturday before, and she had actually suspected that her boyfriend was cheating on her months ago. That Saturday, he finally admitted it to her after she saw him receive a Snapchat of a fully exposed girl, yet did nothing about it because she didn't want to lose him. In other words, she lied to my fiance about when she found out he was cheating. What pissed my fiance off the most was that during this past week, my fiance and her friend talked twice over the phone. Neither time did the friend even mention it. While I understand that she may have been bottling up her feelings or may have been embarrassed, her previous actions and things like engagement parties and dinner parties cast some doubt on this. Regardless of my feelings, my fiance is incredibly angry with her because she had all week to talk about this, to have had a chance to help her with this trauma, but she didn't. She waited until the exact most inconvenient time. In my fiance's words, trust me, this wasn't spontaneous. She chose to have that reaction on that day. We are unsure what to do about my fiance's friend in the wedding. She is currently a bridesmaid, but maybe not anymore. About my family, yesterday morning my fiance called my immediate family and asked what happened. Sorry, but the answer is boring. It was just another case of my parents being incapable of getting anywhere on time. My fiance advised them not to call me yesterday because I was very upset. My family all texted me this morning and apologized profusely. They would have called me Friday night after my defense, but they honestly weren't sure if I wanted to talk to them. And lastly, about my friends, also yesterday my fiance called the closest of my friends that were invited. These friends I know for sure wouldn't lie to my fiance. Half of them forgot and were deeply mortified that they missed it. I'm told that they will call me later today. It turns out that my best man blacked out Thursday night after originally only going out to grab a brewski, and the rest were a combination of something came up or I was sick. Although in one case, the person was very clearly ill and anyone could tell that from talking to him over the phone. So that's basically it. My fiance really pulled through on calling everyone. She didn't have to do that and I'm very lucky to have her. Before I start my job, we will have a real party that is sure to be fun. So how do you think I should handle my friends and family going forward? I think no matter what anyone's reasonings are for not being there, the fact that nobody showed up has gotta hurt bad, especially if it's something you care about as much as the OP obviously cares about this here. This reminds me straight out of the scene from La La Land where Emma Stone's character has a theater performance and Ryan Gosling is supposed to be there, but he doesn't come because he's stuck at a band practice for a band that he doesn't even want to be in, but he's doing it because he thinks it'll help their future. So he totally misses the performance and it's a pretty devastating blow because she really wanted him to be there and basically nobody showed up. There's a sequence later on where basically everything that should have happened happens, and in that sequence, they redo this entire moment. And in the better, happier version, Ryan Gosling is in the very front row with a whole bouquet of flowers, cheering as the first person to stand up and start applauding. And one last reference, it also makes me think of from The Sixth Sense, where the little boy tells his mother that her mother, which would be his grandmother, actually did go to her performance that she always wished she went to. She just never knew because the grandmother stood in the back of the room and never let herself be known. The point of bringing up these stories is that there is something really powerful about having some sort of thing that you want people to be at and then nobody comes. Powerful in a way where this is one of the few things that it means a lot when people are there, and it also hurts a lot when nobody is there. Whereas for most people, most of the time it wouldn't matter, but sometimes it does matter. The last thing I want to say on this is the kind of strange implication that the fiance's friend is trying to sabotage the defense. We only know what we see in this story, but I highly doubt that this fiance's friend decided to schedule her attempt in a way that directly conflicted with his defense. I'm sure that was the last thing on her mind, and just because the timeline doesn't exactly line up in the way that's the most logical doesn't mean that she was doing it on purpose. Sometimes you get hit with devastating news and your mind just processes it for a while before you actually come to any conclusions or take any actions. So all I'm saying is it doesn't seem very likely that she scheduled her attempt in order to ruin his defense. Let me know how you guys see this situation down below. Have you ever been in a situation like this? And if so, let me know what happened either down below in the comments or feel free to submit your own stories via the link in the description. Don't gossip to people in line. They might just work there too. I used to work at a fast food restaurant, and for a while I took a break from work so I could focus on my family and schoolwork for a semester. I still went to the restaurant to eat sometimes and catch up with my friends who work there. One day I was standing in line at the store when this lady comes up and stands way too close behind me. I try to scoot up a little bit, but I don't want to get in someone else's personal space, so I don't go very far. She proceeds to move as well, standing just as close to me as she was before. Now the restaurant was a little short on employees at the front that day, so the line was moving slower than usual. The annoying lady starts trying to talk to me, complaining about the employees.
The employees here are so lazy. I don't know why I still eat here. They need to hire more competent people. My food is terrible every time I eat here.
She just goes on, and I try my best to just ignore her. Meanwhile, the line continues to inch forward, and after what feels like forever, one of the managers finally notices me and says, "Hey OP, how you been? It's so good to see you." I take the opportunity to step out of line, give my friend a hug, and get away from the crazy lady. We talk for about 30 seconds, and she goes back to the drive-thru, and I move back to my place in line. Magically, the lady wasn't standing so close to me anymore and said nothing else to me the rest of the time. So that's why you shouldn't gossip to people online, because they might just work there too. This type of thing probably happens all the time, and if I had to guess, the lady who was complaining about the employees probably doesn't care that she's telling this to an employee. Maybe she felt mildly embarrassed, but I'm sure she's still going to be talking trash about this place regardless of whether or not the situation happened. But let me know if this has ever happened at a place that you've worked before down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why.
When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.